All right, there we go. Hi there, how you all doing? Hope this Friday is treating you all well. Probably better than me, hopefully. Because yeah, if you've not kept up with some of the posts I've done on the socials, yeah, I've been slightly out of commission the past few days because apparently I'm getting my age debuffs, and the one that I got this time around is specifically my right wrist. It's hurting as hell. Today is a bit better. Yesterday was really bad. Yeah, almost like close to a kind of like feeling like my hand was like locked up. Specifically, my wrist was like kind of like locked up in pain. So yeah, I just was kind of out of commission in the sense that, you know, computer requires a lot of like hand things and movements and shifting of the wrist and all that, so I just couldn't do anything of the sort yesterday. I just decided to kind of like rest and not really do anything of that sort because of it, even though I was like planning to do stuff. Yeah, apparently I think some of my lacking of prevention and all that when it comes to, hey, I'm a pretty my job and all that I'm doing is very computer and desk heavy. I should probably look more into like preventing such things. So yeah, I guess until it doesn't hurt, I'm not gonna handle it. So from this point onwards, yes, I am actually gonna do I'm gonna make sure that this is prevented, mostly because it sucks. Because literally I could not do anything. Like even playing games, it was a pain because, you know, mouse movements and all that. And so yeah, I just couldn't do anything. And it still hurts a bit. I still have a bit of issue. It's more than anything if I keep my wrist like rested on the actual desk, it's uncomfortable. It creates a lot of kind of a it's not like intense pain this time around. It's more like just twinges of pain, like a few flare-ups here and there. But I know for a fact that if I keep my wrist on the desk, it's just gonna make it worse. So that means that I don't think I can do things for long term for a bit until like until I'm back in full. Thankfully, for today specifically, it shouldn't be affected because we are just out here discussing, reading things. So it's not gonna use too much of my wrist, and if needed, I can just move to my left hand because I can decently use a mouse left-handed, and that's mostly what I need for these kind of streams. So that's fine. This stream is gonna be okay lengthwise. I don't think it's gonna cause any problem. But for any gaming stream, yeah. Possibly until my wrist gets better, there might be a bit shorter just so I don't push my healing too hard. But yeah, after this point, I'm looking into it. I actually want to get some of those like compression gloves to kind of wear while I'm doing all this, so you know I kind of keep my wrist protected. And of course, looking into things like, you know, exercising, doing that kind of thing, keeping my joints in motion and making sure that they don't get into any other problem. I don't think it's anything like bad. Like I don't think it's any sort of like arthritis or anything like that. It's most likely just my tendons and muscles probably kind of like knotted up and locked up around my wrist, and it just hurts. So it just needs a bit of time until it gets back to its normal state. Because there is definitely a slight swell to it, but not too much, but slightly visible. So yeah, I just needed to wait on it. Yeah, I started getting wrist problems a few years ago. Now it's wrist bracers, and I think to support my wrist while typing, like a fancy wrist-friendly mouse, and all those. And yeah, I probably with some of those as well. With the mouse stuff, I don't like. As much as, they're the, wrist-mounted mouse pads, how cool they are, I just don't personally like them. Mostly because, they are pretty small. I just, I like big, kind of like desk size or like big size kind of like mouse pad. So I need to look to something alternative. Plus, I really like the mouse I'm using. I'm using a true and tested, for those of you who are into like gaming peripherals. You probably know of the Logitech G 503 or 502, I forgot exactly which one, the Hero, which is a really nice mouse pad, which is a really nice mouse. 502, now I can see it, it's actually on the bottom of it. it's like a really nice mouse. It's probably, I've had it for like quite a few years and it's still going well. It probably needs a bit of like a clean up here and there for like I think the scroll wheel is getting a bit munched up, but aside from that, it still works flawlessly. So yeah, I really like this mouse pad. Its biggest disadvantage right now, after having this problem, it's not ambidextrous designed. It's designed for the right hand, so it's a bit annoying to use it with my left hand because of the design. But it's comfortable. And I'm also gonna look for. To be fair, I do want to get like a new keyboard overall. The current one, it's been mostly just kind of like a. It's mostly my backup keyboard what I'm using right now, and I want to actually get a new one that also has a pad. Thankfully, with my typing hand, my dominant kind of like typing hand, nothing so far. This one is fine, but I'm not taking any risks. So I'm going full prevention for both hands, and I kind of want to go like full on, like not just the wrist braces. I kind of want to go full on compression gloves, because at times I have occasion where I feel like also my some of the joints in my fingers, specifically towards kind of like my pinky and the ring finger, sometimes they feel a bit stiff or a bit kind of like weird after like a long use. So I want something that covers the entire hand, because that's mostly that's kind of where the entire arthritis kind of starts to happen. So yeah, sucks. I was not able to do anything that I was kind of planning, because I need to catch up with some of the clip work. I still have like a few videos that like a few video highlights that I want to do for YouTube as well, for some of the clips. So yeah, I just was not able to do any of that because of it. So yeah, I'm gonna take it a bit slow until at the very least the hurt goes away. Or at the very least I know that I'm once again can use it comfortably on my mouse pad and all that. I can use my mouse in a way that I can avoid the pain. It's not a position that I'm personally comfortable with, because I'm kind of hovering my wrist, because that's kind of the whole thing with the with those wrist pads, because you have something to rest while keeping a comfortable position. And yeah, in this situation it's kind of like slightly hovering, which for something like this it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, for these streams it should be fine. I should be okay overall, so it's fine. So yeah, because of that, tomorrow's stream might be a bit shorter, just so I don't push myself with that. And once again, as a reminder, the voice stream is gonna start a bit earlier also, so that's also like another thing, which is probably gonna help out as well, so I don't tire myself. Which weird hindsight thing, I guess. I don't know, maybe predicted in some way. But yeah, I guess I'm reaching the old when I can no longer do this kind of like long term in a day, or at the very least not without proper care for it. Yeah, it sucked a bit. Yesterday specifically, it was really annoying, but outside of that, it was fine. Today is better. I have to see how it's gonna be tomorrow, but just to be safe. It's nothing too bad. Like I'm not once again, I'm not trying to like panic anybody. Like I don't think it's anything. It's just joints doing joint things. Nothing to like. There was no intervention or anything needed. It hurt. It was bad. It just didn't feel right. Like kind of like getting like your neck stiff after like a really bad sleeping session, something like that. Can't really explain it better. It just like hurted like if I moved it in certain ways. And a silly constant pain. But it got to a point yesterday where literally almost any sort of motion was kind of hurting. But yeah, that's kind of about it. So yeah, I slightly probably shorter streams. So yeah. Aside from that, I had like something to mention or something to talk about, but I completely forgot about. Oh yeah, there's like this whole thing on Blue Sky right now that I just used. I'm curious to see how it kind of like turns out with a new like live status thing that they've added, the kind of like live account side, which is really nice, which can redirect you to the stream. A really cool feature. I kind of like it. I'm right now it's still in beta, so I'm curious to see where it goes. I would love to have it as an option where you can, you know, link multiple places, especially if you multi-stream, but right now it's only available with Twitch. So, you know, but kind of neat, kind of curious to see how it goes. Right now, from the looks of it, because, you know, it's basically a live status that you have to manually set up yourself, and you just say when you're getting, once you're live, to basically you set it up that you're now or you're now streaming, and apparently at max you can keep it for like 4 hours. And that's kind of it. There's no, which is not really my usual stream length. So that status might get a bit updated as we stream. Hopefully, if I remember. But yeah, cool little feature in case people stumble upon you and just need a more direct way. That is not necessarily, you know, the stream announcement post and all that. Because, you know, I'm trying to be a bit more active on the Blue Sky side of things, especially these days. But yeah, for those of you who probably have not, maybe have noticed a pattern, or maybe have noticed at the release, for those who are still on the Twitter, that I'm less and less active even these days, and I've minimized most of the effort I'm putting on there, just because the platform is gone to way too many lengths to basically just put me off and made me do a ton of like backflips and all that, because there was that whole shtick with the new with the parent new TOS that would have allowed initially it was thought that it would allowed you know, the Grok, the Twitter AI model thingy, to use any image posted on the platform for its training model, but apparently it was just some schmuck who took advantage of some of the prompt usages of how to, you know, basically exploit Grok into saying a statement that was not factually true and based on the TOS, and people just took that for granted apparently. But no, that was not like, so apparently that's not the thing. The TOS still, like, when I looked into it, it still kind of made me feel there's still like something about it. Apparently what you are writing is going to be used for certain AI model learning things like prompts or something like that. I don't know, like, but specifically what you write, which is like weird. I don't know exactly what's that about. But yeah, even with all of that, just because of how bonkers and already the whole auto image bullshit that is happening on there, it's causing a ton of problems. Yeah, I've minimized it. I've minimized it even more. Right now, what I still have there posted, which is currently my some of the clips that I still have scheduled. Those are still gonna be there. I'm gonna keep them for the time being until there's not gonna be some variant that's also gonna edit clips or, you know, videos on, or like auto edit the same way they have right now with the images. If something of the sorts appears, I'm probably gonna scrape those as well. But in the meantime, what's already been posted that's not you know, GIF images that I've put beforehand as protection, that's basically it. And my interaction there is extremely minimal. Aside from occasionally checking out on my mutuals, that's kind of it. And maybe interacting a bit here and there for some of the mutuals who are maybe a bit active. That's it. I'm mostly just putting that in my live posts, but in a very minimal fashion. Like, I'm not putting thumbnails, I'm not putting anything else of the sorts. I've minimized extremely and just mostly focusing on Blue Sky and platforms that I feel like are a lot better. I've seen some other platforms that I want to look into it to kind of like see if they might be viable. I saw like one that's looked interesting. I forgot the name of it. I think it was Kara, which is currently like still in beta, which is it's kind of more looks a bit more Instagram like, and it's a bit designed more to cater towards artists and people who utilize a lot of like visual creators. But, you know, you can also structure it in a way that, you know, it can also be used as a normal social media platform. that is apparently designed specifically to be kind of against AI systems and AI models and AI images, so it filters that out. All that. Currently, it's still early. It's still kind of its early development. I've not looked too heavy into it. I've made an account just to jump on the bandwagon and have it set it up, but I've not put anything on there. Once I have something public or something fully set up, I'll do that. I've seen some other things. I think I've seen there's like a video format thing for Blue Sky as well that has been created. I think like SkyTube, where you can already have your clips are already logged on, but I think you can also put new ones or something like that. So I'm also want to check that one out. So yeah, I want to expand in some other places where maybe even be like maybe even like early push towards them and see what their deal is, because why not? I'm down with experimenting into new places. See, I want to go by that logic of not putting everything in one basket, not putting all your eggs in one basket, because if Twitter has shown anything, it's not healthy. It makes it worse for you, especially with all the communities. And even though Blue Sky still has some places making decisions that I don't necessarily like, I think the moderation or the admin team is a bit off to me, like especially with some decisions they've done in the past. Overall, it seems that nothing is too bad right now, but that's fine. I think they're also pushing to their own AI model thing as well, which is not great, but I think they're gonna do it in a different way, at the very least, considering that they still advertise themselves as being the platform where the AI model cannot auto edit your images or anything like that without consent. I'm guessing even if they are gonna implement some sort of AI model, they're probably gonna make it in a way that it's not gonna be the level of intrusiveness that it's probably currently is Grok. Maybe, who knows? I think it's still early what I've seen as opposed with that. Like I think it's Gem called or something like that. But yeah, it also shows that even current platforms may not be great. There's some other like ad proto things out there, like the Fediverse and things like that. I'm not like to look too heavy into those. That's a bit. I'm trying to look into things that are easier and cookie cutter and kind of simple for me to kind of like quickly like grasp and look into it. Right now, maybe later down the line, I'll look more into things like that, and that allow you to kind of like quickly shift between platforms. That would be also nice. And yeah, even with the clips and all that, because I have it currently available. All my clips are currently available on Blue Sky, YouTube Shorts, TikTok. Of course, they're also made on Twitch as well, because I initially create them on Twitch and then either compile them, or depending on how I create them, if I make them into a highlight, I then cut them around or re-edit them into a clip format or something like that. Things of that nature and that sort. And there was for a while Twitter, but I think I'm just probably gonna stop it. And I'm gonna get back into that. I think I'm actually gonna wait a bit longer to actually catch up with the backlog on my social media, because tomorrow I'm actually gonna have all the posts that I had to catch up with my social media posted. So maybe I'm gonna start fresh with basically everything being scheduled at the same time. So I guess having this extra pause because of health reasons. Probably take that into advantage to kind of reorganize a bit of how I schedule my content. So that's fine. I guess we can look at the silver lining of this entire scenario. But yeah, a neat feature with the live function. That's I kind of like it. I'll have to look into it. Curious to see how exactly it's gonna evolve. I mean, it'd be neat if it's you can somehow maybe at some point have some sort of like API thing where you can connect it with Twitch and it auto updates based on your current live status on Twitch. That'd be nice. But right now, the manual version is fine. It's a start. It's a good one overall. But yeah, aside from that, not many Things mentioned, I think. I don't think I have something specific. Not really. Because, you know, mostly it's just going to be the usual schedule for the rest of the week. Next week, as I said, is probably going to be a bit of a shift, just so we can, you know, slot in the Enfield release for Friday. But it's going to be released on Thursday, but we're going to play on Friday because that's my schedule. So that's one thing. So I don't think we're going to do Final Fantasy. So we're going to keep the conclusion of Final Fantasy for the week after that. But I'm, you know, shocked and surprised that we're literally there now. Could not fucking believe it. Although, a bit annoying that, you know, I technically still have to do like 2-3 more prerequisite things. It's just, apparently I'm actually required to do the hard modes of the leveling trials. Because I was told, yeah, I was told that, you know, the Crystal Tower is going to be a requirement, which I've done it way ahead. But apparently it's also the, first trials that you do in the leveling are also required to be done, completed in hard mode. Fair enough, I suppose. I'm not necessarily minded too much, because at the least I'm also getting some items from the vendor that way. So I'm gearing up my Red Mage a bit more. But yeah, after that, that means that we're jumping into Heavensworth territory. After that fact, which is going to be really cool. I'm excited for that as well. I've heard like weird mentions, because I was listening to like some Final Fantasy things. I've heard like some weird mentions that there are some communities somewhere out there, of course through private server means, that are actually having 1.0 private servers. And I was like kind of curious to look into it a bit. I was like kind of interested, like, would we, like, not on Twitch, because I know Twitch is funky with that kind of stuff. I know that from like the WoW side of things, so I'm not gonna do that for Final Fantasy either. But you know, on YouTube things are a bit more gray, in the gray with that kind of scenario. So I was like kind of vaguely curious to see if there is anything of that sort. Like I've seen mentions in comments that there are communities in Discord servers that do that, mostly to just kind of experience the story and get that context. That because I've actually listened to like a video about the 1.0 like storyline overall, and I'm a bit annoyed that you get a ton of context for some of the characters, or like character, you know, backstory and development, that you're not really not even getting it explained at all. Specifically, like I think the worst one is Memphilia, that has a ton of character development, or like a ton of like character background, because she was like a main character that kind of like develops through the 1.0 storyline that you don't really receive. So as someone that has jumped from 2.0, she's very plain, which I'm not gonna deny. Yes, she's very plain compared to the rest of the Scions currently. I'm sure it's gonna get better, but still, currently she's very plain. So yeah, I was like really, that's kind of shitty about it. You know, the whole other second side, you know, because you have the White Raven and the Black Wolf, and you know, we had no mentions of what's the deal with the White Raven, even though technically he's dead and all that. But still, some of the context there would have been nice received to some extent. Not necessarily to experience how the game is, because my understanding, like, its biggest issues that they were in the past, like some people complained about like how the game played, but it was mostly about like performance and optimization, because the servers were like performing bad, and also the game was really badly optimized. So those were kind of like the main issues, which caused the rest of the gameplay feeling worse. Because from my understanding, some people actually mentioned that overall, like, if you actually had a playable game, you know, class design, play size and all that were generally fine. So, you know, that's why I was kind of like vaguely curious, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna do it. That's just something that kind of brought my attention, and I was like, maybe that's something we could look into it for like preservation's sake more than anything. That'd be something need to look into. But yeah, also in the MMO subject, that it completely flew under my radar, because somehow I don't think there was like a big fanfare about it or anything of the sorts. This February, like, we are getting into TBC Classic with the anniversary servers, and I'm like, damn, it's already been like more than a year. Holy darn! Then I'm once again kind of saddened that I missed out on even attempting to you know, experience the classic like endgame progression once again through like its natural evolution through the expansions. So we're probably gonna I'm gonna once again skip through that, but at the very least we were able to actually experience most of the leveling. At least we got our warlock to 60, even though that's exactly when we stopped. We hit ding to 60 and basically hit the hour for that final stream, because we are literally on the final day of my sub at the time. And I would love to jump into TBC right now. Just I don't have any sort of specific means to pay for a sub. And if I want to pay for a sub, I think I would like to get like a longer sub, like already a prepaid, maybe like a year or so kind of sub, so at least we have the streams locked in for a long for the long term. Because right now I cannot say with confidence that I would be able to keep the sub on a month by month basis. So I prefer to have all of it paid in advance, and right now I have no means to do that, because I would like to kind of get back into to our classic character and experience that. And I'm kind of thinking of maybe adding that as some sort of goal, because there is like an event thing that I'm want to plan out for February. So maybe that's something we can figure out in there, and we're not gonna lose too much of the Burning Crusade progression with it. That'd be neat, but I'll have to look into it to see. But that'll be neat. That'll be nice. That'll be fun. We'll have to see how that's gonna turn up. Because I like to jump into like a Burning Crusade. I don't think I've done a bit of like Burning Crusade progression, like leveling back in the day here and there, but I don't think I've done it fully. I've done a bit of it also. I remember in the initial TBC Classic when we were like getting into the I think Wrath of the Lich King pre-patch for Classic. But that's like another point I stopped, mostly for like personal and life reasons got in the way, and just couldn't keep up with it because I was like planning to actually prep for Wrath of the Lich King. I even got like in a guild and everything like back then. But yeah, it's a shame really, but we'll see. I would love to, but I cannot confirm it in any way that that's gonna happen. Although the question will be right now if they're gonna push with Wrath of the Lich King, because that's still my theory, and that they will. Because I don't think we've got any sort of confirmation like for the roadmap, what's gonna happen after we go through most of TBC. Because again, my personal theory, considering that technically I think even after TBC we're probably gonna have another year, because I'm guessing the TBC cycle is gonna run in a similar time frame as Classic, so a year or so, maybe a bit longer, technically a bit longer than a year. So I'm guessing by spring next year TBC should be concluded. By end of spring next year TBC should be concluded. And my suspicion, because my suspicion is that then they're gonna jump into Wrath of the Lich King, which is gonna be another year or so. So somewhere between end of summer, 2 years from now. My idea is that they are giving themselves, the Classic team, basically a time frame with these anniversary servers, to kind of bring forward some sort of alternative vanilla plus game style, kind of like old school RuneScape in a way. That's kind of my theory, because right now I don't see where's the end game for when I say end game, not saying the end game of the actual games, like the end game for Blizzard when it comes to the anniversary server. Like what's exactly their purpose? To be just an off cycle Classic run to the current Classic run of expansions? Because that in the long term feels weird, like where exactly that's gonna lead. And like to me, like the anniversary servers must have some sort of end game purpose at some point. And as most of the community sees as Wrath of the Lich King being the end of the Classic experience, because Cataclysm revamped the old world and all of that, and that basically rethought the leveling experience. I'm imagining that if there's any point to put a hard stop and then create something completely new, would be the farthest point you could do it is Wrath of the Lich King. And to some extent, I think it's also the easiest for the dev theme overall, because, you know, there are different interpretations and different ideas in how people view the Classic Plus experience. And even we've seen with some elements of Seasonal Discovery that they're still implementing some like more modernized, you know, MMO designs for like some of the characters and how they synergize and how they play. And at times it feels a bit odd when, you know, we're talking about, you know, the classic vanilla experience where the classes didn't have like a very, they weren't like extremely locked in certain purpose. Wrath of the Lich King is kind of like the point where a lot of it has been refined, where basically everything started now fitted in the general, you know, holy trinity of tank, healer, DPS. Like nobody was kind of like left out, none of the specs were kind of like left out, everything was kind of like refined, but at the very least to be reasonable, to be approachable, to be playable, even if in a casual sense, if not necessarily on a full end game sense. At the very least they were viable options even for your day-to-day play, and there is something to do there. So that's, I'm guessing they would probably prefer to start from Wrath of the Lich King because it's an easier job, especially because they're still kind of keeping the general design, while you know, classic vanilla had a lot of like experimental concepts that, you know, even through the class design that is there, you can see elements and concepts and ideas that were kind of started but were never put to fruition, and remnants of those concepts like kind of remain there. You know, ideas like, for example, like the tank warlock kind of concept, which to an extent Seasonal Discovery has done it. In my perception, honestly, I don't think they've done it in the way that I kind of viewed it. I viewed like the tanking warlock something more akin to a pet tanking spec, where the pet is utilized kind of as your main mitigation option, and you know, you utilize some aspects of regeneration, but somehow it's shared with your pet. So which, you know, created like could create something interesting concepts and synergies, but of course they're a bit more kind of wonky. You know, Paladin being more of a buffer kind of type of class, which is a different style of support that we haven't really seen. Like, I think the first within like WoW, the, you know, class design, I think the Evoker from retail, that I've actually played a bit of Evoker once when I played the anniversary event in retail, kind of follows that concept, but in a more interestingly, you know, engaging kind of passive way, because a lot of the buffs and all that are given as you're doing your rotation, that it's mostly a DPS rotation, and I kind of like that. I like the Evoker as a concept because of it, and it's something that it felt like around my alley of a playstyle. So I feel like maybe like some aspects of that could be part of the Paladin, and you know, I've seen some interesting other interesting concepts in the past that some other, you know, vanilla you know, private servers that go into that kind of like vanilla plus concept and experience and design have experimented and had their own interpretation. I think Turtle WoW has done some interesting interpretation of like the priest, not a priest, I don't know, it wasn't a Turtle WoW, I think it was a different server that had like an interesting interpretation of the priest, where the discipline priest was more like the monk class, because to some extent the Scarlet Monastery kind of like represented that monk side of it with the Mists of Pandaria rework. So they kind of like, you know, they kind of like retrofitted it back into from classic onwards, which is was like a neat concept to have like a clothy DPS. And I think I've seen some other interesting concepts of that sort. But yeah, weird things. I don't know, that's kind of like my theory on it, that they're giving themselves with the anniversary servers kind of like a time frame that then the anniversary servers can shift into like an old school RuneScape sort of game, and until then they are utilizing their seasonal classic servers to experiment with ideas and concepts and that could then be taken and refined into the full what's gonna be the full game or the new play experience. Because right now, the seasons kind of have that idea, but the whole aspect of it that, you know, it's not, it's either it's not evergreen or it's always, the concepts always interchange. Does not have that kind of like, you know, full on like what you're experiencing right now is just, it's temporary and it's something for in the moment, and then, you know, then comes the next new thing, which is not necessarily akin to MMOs to a full extent. Like, technically, yes, a lot of elements of MMOs still change, you know, class designs, leveling, concepts, maybe even some aspects of how endgame is reworked. Or like a early game is maybe reworked into a new fashion, which is also something that I've heard in mutterings, even with Final Fantasy. Yoshi mentioned that he's currently thinking of like a second sort of rebirth for the game. What exactly that's gonna mean, I do not know. My hopes for it is that maybe they're gonna still keep this kind of like core concept, because I feel like its biggest fault from 1.0 to Realm Reborn that I've kind of just mentioned it before is that a lot of the context from the 1.0 story are not really given, and a lot of it that it's worse. And its biggest problem is that the Realm Reborn, like majority of the community feels like Realm Reborn is kind of like this big, great filter, as it's kind of called, where a lot of people kind of fell off because Realm Reborn is a bit more of a slog. It's writing and process and kind of the way kind of the quest flow works, even if you're focusing on the MSQ and nothing else, is a bit funky and not amazing, and you probably should look into and kind of keeps it slow and tiring, and just you're quickly losing interest. So my hope that their concept of rebirth is just streamlining this entire experience to current content, where you're still getting the main storyline points, but you're maybe getting it at a faster speed. Because I can understand that with time, you know, that goalpost of getting to current content, it's getting longer and longer and longer by, you know, having to experience the entirety of the game from start to finish. Which again, it's a good thing in its own right, but you know, it can also be equally bad. Because you know, it's gonna be a lot of some people might just want to jump to that. It's not necessarily that's the intent for Final Fantasy, but you know, with time, as more content it's added, it's gonna get more difficult. And for people that just want to, you know, get the main points, get the general story experience for like the MSQ, maybe on occasion, and whatever side content has did those expansion open up to be something that, you know, they can be approached at different times and not be a hard requirement for, you know, for your just leveling progression to current content would be nice. I don't know, I think like some people that are more deeper in the community might have like better suggestion than I do, but there's something there, definitely. I could understand the concern. My idea is that I'm curious that something that they could do, and I feel like it could shift into that direction a bit, because he also mentioned like giving more reasons for people to like log in. I wonder if Yoshi was also gonna like take into account the idea of maybe adding more expansions into the free trial through this process. You know, so as you know, more content is getting released, making that, you know, barrier of entry and that cost of entry even smaller, and be like, oh, you still want to play? Here, have a good a higher chunk of expansions available to you now. I'm not sure exactly at what point did the current state of the free trial got released with Stormblood. I wonder if you can find out when. I wonder if there is like a thing. I have a date on this. October 4th. 2023. Okay, so this is recent-ish. Expansion was in Final Fantasy 14 in 2023. Expansions. Ah, that can't be it. $23. That's. Oh no, around Endwalker time? Because yeah, Dawn Trail was announced in 2023 but released in 2024. So yeah, around Endwalker? Really? Crazy. Up. Yeah, October 2nd, 2023. It was added the starter edition and free trial of the game. In 2020, we also got Heavensward. So it's on a 3-year basis from the looks of it. That's kind of the concept. Like 2020, then 3 years later, we got Stormblood. And now we are kind of on the time frame of getting... Technically, if they are still following the same idea, Shadowbringers should be added somewhere at the end of this year. Like if we were to go by that logic, huh? And get like two new jobs with it, the Gunbreaker and the Dancer. That'd be neat. Okay, it was like literally added 3 years after the expansion itself got released. That'll bring us in 2019. Yeah. No, Stormblood was added 6 years after it was released. Similar-ish. A bit more would happen to her. So yeah, makes sense. And considering that, you know, Endwalker is kind of the end of the first big saga, this game, at a very... That could be like a D-shift, maybe. I don't know, maybe somehow they just make the big decision of adding both, and now you have the entire saga, and you're just experiencing Dawn Trail. And again, that's something, you know... So are we doing the Tactiquest? Yeah, sorry, I just got... derailed. Don't worry about it. It's the first hour of the stream is usually a lot more kind of like chill and just doing conversations. So don't worry. If you're out here expecting, we are gonna get into it. Right now, I realize that, you know, I got pretty heavy into like side tangents, and I'm getting close to like an ad break. So I don't want to like start into the discussion, put a break. I want to like start fresh in the new hour. So yeah, don't worry. Like the first hour is usually a lot more of a warm up. Sorry, yeah, this one was a weird side tangent. But yeah, actually to kind of add to it, so we don't have to have this discussion after I'm done with the break. Because yeah, this is gonna be mainly focused a TTRPG stream, where we're gonna have you know, discussions of TTRPG related stuff. to kind of once again clarify, when it comes to these streams specifically, on all the other streams I'm also open with this, but you know, these streams are like a dedicated space for that. If you want to have any sort of discussion, any sort of like, you know, talks about this kind of topic, feel free to do so. I want this is a space that I'm specifically designing and harboring to, you know, for having these discussions openly. That could be, I don't know, you are playing a new system then you feel excited about and maybe you want to talk a bit about it. Maybe there's you have something in the works that you kind of like want to share it around, and you know, you have that kind of like dilemma of you can't really share it with people that understand what you're sharing, because it might be spoilery if for example you're a game master and is designing some fun, I don't know, session things, and they can't really spoil it for the players. Or maybe you're here to, you know, have some difficulties. Maybe you want to ask some suggestions, for some advice. Maybe you need some suggestions. Anything else of the sorts. I want this to be kind of like a space where people can have that sort of discussion, chat, and help each other out. I can also offer my assistance to the best of my abilities to kind of offer like a quick background. Basically, I've started, you know, in 2018-ish, like most people, with D&D. Played for a good amount of years, that in equal amounts as a player and a game master, here and there. So that is one side of thing. In more recent years, and almost like 2 years ago, I've actually started branching out into different systems. The first kind of breakthrough being World of Darkness, got through Hunter the Reckoning, some Vampire the Masquerade, maybe some other ones in the future, who knows, that we're gonna try out, but those are definitely the ones that I played. Some Gestalt RPG, which for those who do not know what Gestalt RPG is, it's a D20 system. If we were to put D&D 5th edition and Pathfinder 2nd edition into like two ends of a spectrum, Gestalt would be somewhere in the middle. It's a bit more complex than D&D, a bit more simpler than Pathfinder. It's not as granular as Pathfinder is when it comes to character builds. And all of that, and also Pathfinder itself, that's also another system that I've tried out. Plus, you know, I've had all sorts of other discussions and through these streams where I've covered other RPGs and game systems of that sort, and look through their game rules and systems and have a bit of understanding of them. Lancer was one of them. Bunkers and Badasses, the D20 system for like the Borderlands IP. Which else? I've also looked way back in the day at Daggerheart when the playtest was still around, as that was like the main thing, not how it is right now. Maybe we'll check Daggerheart, maybe, because I know like a part of the game system is available through Demiplane without having you to buy it. So maybe we'll look at that, see how exactly it's structured. We'll see. Aside from that, also some quick one-offs, things like, you know, Candle Obscura, Call of Cthulhu, Mothership, Call to Divinity Lost, GURPS. Most of those were kind of like the Halloween collection thingy. GURPS not so much. Mithras was a recent one that we've checked. I'm not sure other one in the past that we've done. I think those are it so far. That like big ones, I think those are it that I've done so far. Mithras, Gestalt, technically Daggerheart, and the Lancer. And right now, the one we're doing right now, it's Tactiquest, which is a near diceless RPG system. More about that after we go past, you know, the ad break and all of that. So, and you know, I'm gonna give like a quick summary and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, and maybe many others in the near future. So yeah, I have some knowledge of a few systems, either through playing and learning from them, or just simply through reading. Even if you're out here talking about a system that maybe I've not played or I've not looked too heavily into it, I can still offer at the very least a more generic advice, and then based on your knowledge of the system and your knowledge, or through your own way of looking through the rules and looking through the systems, you can then, you know, adapt and apply that concept as it fits with the system. So yeah, don't feel shy about it, you know, feel open to kind of like cover and talk about anything else of the sorts. Don't worry if, you know, the game that I'm currently covering is not necessarily related to what you do want to talk about. to some extent, it's you know, these discussions are also as a way to kind of have something to discuss about, something as a filler, if nobody has a subject to talk about. But yeah, but at times, you know, I still want to an extent still, you know, cover some of the material that I want to cover today, but at the same time, I'm also flexible with having certain discussions, having certain moments where you can, you know, take a break off, maybe discuss whatever you ask, then getting back to the main topic, and so on. But yeah, that's the general kind of introduction for, you know, how things work around here. Overall, thankfully, because of some contacts and some friendos that and mutuals and mutual places that I am around, I was also able to acquire some additional RPG systems. So even after we're done with Tactiquest, which is still gonna be a while, because I think I'm still expecting, or like still thinking on maybe 2 or 3 more streams of it after this one to cover. That's kind of like what I'm currently like kind of suspecting. So we'll see exactly how all of that kind of turns out. But that's kind of the plan. But after that, I'm still gonna have some new something new to talk about. So we're not gonna be out of material just yet, thankfully. But you know, I've been saved once again. We'll see after that one what exactly I'm gonna be able to cover. But for the time being, these are the ones, and we'll see from there. But yeah, aside from that, I don't think I have anything else more specific to mention for you know, how these things are gonna go. So just so we know where I'm gonna be on subject after the fact, I think I'm gonna take the break now, because an ad is gonna come up in less than in around a minute or so, actually, based on my current ad run. So yeah, in kind of like around a minute or so, the ad is gonna start. So I'm gonna take a break now, let the ad run through, and once all of that is done and over, I'm gonna return, and we are actually gonna be talking on topic and all of that. So, you know, warm up has been done for the time being. So yeah, I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, now we can get into it. So, as before, and as usual, we are gonna go through a few chapters of a TRPG rulebook, currently covering Tactiquest, which is a tactical sandbox RPG, as mentioned here, that is near diceless, meaning that certain aspects of encounter building require some elements of dice, but when it comes to anything of decision or, you know, choice resolution or action resolution, none of that is determined by dice. None of that is determined through any randomized factor of RNG. All of that is purely through tactical skill and whatever skill sets you have available, you know, to better manage your resources and your abilities. So that's the overall concept. Kind of once again utilize the itch.io page to kind of quickly summarize it as well. Strategic, fast-paced fights with no wasted turns and no stuns, meaning the time spent on fights is boiled down to interesting decisions and impactful abilities rather than waiting for a good die roll to land a hit or shrug off behind being stunned. Wide variety of flavor and focus character classes designed to capture specific, compelling fantasies and feel widely distinct from each other, with the majority of classes being non-magical. Scholars, you know, rangers, merchants, bards, and even more can contribute effectively even without the use of magic. All, as mentioned before, mostly diceless, so that basically brings it to the forefront the player input, using only dice to set up situations but never to resolve them, and, you know, and more emphasis on resource management and attrition to fit the pace of a typical campaign. with a lot of important core systems like crafting, currency, and travel that are not secondary but are or optional afterthoughts, but the main components of the game. And everything within the sandbox campaign is player driven and designed to facilitate exploration and setting your own goal. Yeah, in general, that's kind of the aspect of it. Overall, mostly kind of following a kind of classical fantasy style of, you know, the hero's journey out there to fight monsters and big threats. But, you know, where, you know, the bigger emphasis is obvious because it's a tactics RPG. It's more focused on the combat section and kind of the combat pillars, but, you know, that doesn't mean that you cannot utilize some of the systems and some of the abilities and skill sets you have available for social encounters, or maybe other elements of puzzle solving or exploration. As we kind of seen last week, as we've covered a few of the chapters, mostly we focused on the introduction section, as well as the you know, overall rules, general expectations, the world, the skill, and finalize it with skills and tasks, which covered most of that side of the game. Today, we're gonna focus on character creation, how to make an overall character. We're just gonna look at the broad strokes of it, like what exactly are the steps and choices that you need to make. We're not gonna look in depth at all of them. Maybe at best, we're gonna look at one of each just to see how they are specifically structured, but we're not gonna go through the entire list. That's probably gonna be something that maybe we'll do another time. My focus with these streams is to kind of cover the main core concepts, or like the core ideas. Anything when it comes to, like, you know, player choices, player decisions, list options, like items, monster, creature lists, equipment, locations, or anything like of that sort. That's mostly for you to look into it more heavily and to make your decisions as you play. It is a it's a freely available system, so it's not like it's gonna cost you anything. And but at the same time, I still want to, you know, encourage you all to acquire it yourself and to kind of also make it a bit easier. Here's where you here. This is the place where you can get it. One final disclaimer, two actual disclaimers about this entire thing is that Tactiquest is currently still in its play testing phase, so a lot of aspects are still gonna change, or like certain major features can still shift and change along the way and across time. So whatever I may cover today may not necessarily be as relevant as tomorrow, and more importantly than that, what I'm covering right now, it is a current work in progress version of it that it's not yet public. So it's not going to be a one-to-one representation of what you currently have available on the itch.io page, but it's also kind of a hint of what to expect in the near future when it comes to like an update. So far, I think what we've covered there was a few changes with the skills, specifically that you're no longer gonna have a class list of skills. You're just now gonna have custom skills and just general skills that you obtain, but you're no longer gonna have a limitation on what skills you can obtain depending on what class you are going to pick. I think there's been some balance changes with the classes, but that's something that we're not gonna, you know, because we're not gonna cover classes. It's not something that you're probably gonna see here anytime soon. And I think there were like some other ones. Let me check. Let's look at it real quick. Change log. There are some combat changes, but that's something that's you know, we're gonna cover at a different stream. Equipment changes, so that's something that might come up as well. And yeah, this is the list of all the class changes and some aspects of how, you know, spells in certain PCs work. And yeah, and overall status of playtest. Yeah. Also, to make it very clear, the offer is level 2 janitor. And we have ways of support here, you know, kofi and all of that. HIO is another way of offering support as well. And of course, even if you cannot do it financially, any way of, you know, covering, playing, sharing aspects of this game with other people, that's also another fun way of showing support. Not all forms of support have to come monetarily. But yeah, that's mostly the coverage of it all. So, as I said before, I've not covered too much, or at least I've not looked too heavily yet into like diceless systems, or systems that don't require too much of it. Because personally, I have nothing against it. I can play okay when it comes to, like, you know, mostly the classical kind of RPG that where most of the actions are resolved by the outcome of the dice. Of course, depending on what systems you play, some do it a bit, some give you some form of granularity or some form of assistance to kind of figure out how exactly that outcome is resolved, in some less so, or it's a lot more binary maybe in some scenarios. Yeah, the mileage may vary. I'm completely fine with it. I'm the type of person that I generally like to roll with the dice and just kind of go with the chaos. I have my moments as well. I'm not saying I'm perfect, where I'm also getting annoyed at times of just maybe having an unlucky streak and just getting a ton of like bad die rolls or anything else of the sort. So yeah, but as a wider whole, I can also find it completely understandable if people out there and do not find it enjoyable, do not find it engaging, or just it's mostly just a frustrating element of just letting big moments or big decisions at the whims of randomness, at the whims of a die, or maybe even at the whims of some sort of like math system behind a calculator or randomizer, which are not true randomness in most scenarios. You know, the way randomizers are set up in digital format are not like a full representation or like a true representation of randomness. In some aspects, it's with intent, because we have a skewed, it's on a psychological level, we have a skewed perception of what we think random is, but that's not true of it. Like, you know, randomness could also be hitting 3 ones in a row. That's still random. And sometimes maybe not hitting it at all. In general, we have this kind of like weird skewed perception that with enough rolls, we're gonna hit every result possible in a fair amount of time. While in most scenarios, that's not true. Like in actual random scenarios, that's not true. You could get tens of repeats before maybe you even get you know, you get your entire, you know, representation. Because, you know, let's say with the 1d20, it's still a 1 in 20 chance of getting the getting the 20 result. But, you know, again, but that's depending on what your, you know, at a kind of what scale you're looking at, that is true. Plus, you know, many other factors that can affect these results that are purely either on a human or a physics level, you know, friction, air, dice balance, many other factors. But yeah, tangents aside, when it comes to like randomness, yeah, it's understandable that some people, when it comes to making decisions, don't like that kind of thing. And this is where kind of these systems come around, where to some extent maybe borrow or follow up some concepts that you might encounter more in like board game style of systems, or the board game types of play outside, that are not necessarily encountered in tabletop RPGs, and utilize concepts within there to kind of replace and bring further structure and further, you know, stability within a system where a dice would have offered it instead. So let's get into it. Character creation. So first, you have creature type and class. You pick a creature type, which are going to be listed later in the book, And also a class equally listed later in the book. You gain all the class abilities of your class and the creature type for your first level, which are marked with a box, with the exception of perks, which are marked with an arrow pointing sort of triangle. That's the best exemplification I can give you for anyone who's not necessarily watching. Also, I should probably zoom in a bit, actually, if I think about it. There we go. Better. Yeah. The first level 1 are marked with a dark box. The perks are marked with a kind of arrow pointing towards the right. Not arrow, but triangle. Now, these choices, particular your class, have a huge impact on what strength and abilities your character has. So, pick it carefully. The choosing class sections goes below into more details. Now, when it comes to rare creature type, the bestiary bundle with bundled with this book contains a wide variety of monsters and also humanoids, some of which are also playable as player characters. But they will require your game master's approval, as they consist of more out of their choices, plus other aspects regarding if they're fit for the setting, fit for whatever sort of a campaign or style of play you are trying to do, all that sort of thing. And maybe even the aspect that maybe either the game master or somebody within the party may not find a creature fair for some reason or another, out of their own justification, which can also be equally valid. Then, after you choose your creature type and class, you choose your perks. You gain 2 perks from the options listed under your class and creature type. You can give up 2 perks to multiclass in a secondary class, as described in Multiclassing. So you can even, so that's nice. You can even kind of start already kind of munchkin gestalt in a way from the beginning. And I'm guessing your Multiclassing has some limitations, but we're gonna get into that once we're gonna read it. And I'm guessing my mention here, you gain 2 perks, meaning that you choose 2 from both of the lists, not you're choosing 2 of each of the lists. You have basically, so you can have like 2 class options, or 2 creature options, 2 creature perks, or 1 creature and 1 class perk. But at most you have 2. You don't have 2 of each. That's my understanding of it, and I'm guessing that I'm right with that. I hope I'm understanding that correctly. Then you have hit points and strain. Note your hit points are based on the grade you get from your class HP. Yeah, that's correct reading. It's 2 total. Good. That's okay. Sometimes I like to have that clarification, because in some cases it can also be a pure mistake from editor and writing perspective. Like maybe you intended to say 2 of each, but you forgot to make that specific mention, or depending on how it's worded, it could be misunderstood. And so it's nice to have that clarity. So yeah, hit points and strain. Note your hit points based on the grade you get from your class, which can be 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Depending on the grade, which can be from an F to an A. Hit points determine how much damage you can take before defeat in battle, which is mentioned in combat. Various abilities and effects such as first aid restore hit points, but most of them also increase your strain, as your body can only take so much healing before needing a rest. And you note your maximum strain from your class. So I'm guessing strain is kind of like a similar factor, the same way kind of like you have rest limited abilities, or maybe in cases of spellcasters, you have an amount of pool of resources that then after a while kind of requires you to take a rest, so you don't necessarily abuse short healing or ways to kind of quickly heal yourself, or not necessarily short healing, but short time rest or anything like that. Sometimes you need to do like a full rest in order to be back to 100. Then skills. You choose a skill from that were mentioned in a chapter before. We've had a stream where we covered all of that, so you can check the VOD for that. Your class gives you a number of skill points. Combat and crafting skills cost 2, while field and lore skills cost 1. You can take a skill a second time for an additional benefit. But yeah, as it was mentioned before, you no longer have a class list. You just choose a number of skills. You get a number of skill points that you can then, invest into how many, combat and crafting skills you want, and you can also afford. Then movement stats, your speed. You note your speed from your class, which determines how far you can move with your action. Your hurry distance is half your speed, rounded up. Always round up unless otherwise noted. Determines how far you can move with a small action. Your jump is in the same distance. Yeah, half your speed rounded up is your hurry for your small action, and also your jump in distance. Then you choose your then you have your equip slots and gear. Note your number of equip slots. Then obtain starting gear, which is mentioned later in the page. Based on your class, weapons and armor must be placed in the equip slots. You gain stamina each travel rest equal to your empty equip slots. Each piece of unwanted starting gear can be exchanged for 1 silver, and you can carry 10 items by default. Equipped items still count against your number of items carried, which is fair because you're technically carrying them on you, not necessarily with you. Then you have character traits, which are more personalized aspects of things like background, personality, appearance, name. These are things that you can work with the game master and your fellow players to kind of tie everything together, either between player characters or within the world, faction, locations, and many other little things of that scenario. And finally, you have and you also have a party sheet. The supply stats spent to take travel rest is tracked party wide. Rather than on an individual character sheet. Your party starts with 3 out of 6 supplies. Yeah, a way to also manage resources while out on adventuring. Now, when it comes to background, you have a full say over who your player character is as a person, with one exception. Tactiquest player characters are from the lower classes, the fringes of societies, or other difficult circumstances. You cannot be someone whose bloodline or title puts them in a position of power. So no nobles or at least no one who holds authority anymore. You might still be a princess who opposes her family's rule and is actively hunted by the ruling soldiers. Once wealthy son of a noble house that blew your family's fortune and now receives only mucky contempt from those of high social standing, or someone with experience in noble courts such as a servant or oft ignored advisor, though you escaped or gave up this position to be an adventurer. So yeah, you can technically still have some sort of ties to nobility, but whatever your social status is right now is no longer one that could hold any sort of influence. Yeah, someone that shunned its own family, or maybe the family themselves shunned them. Someone that maybe has been around noble circles, but is not necessarily a person of influence themselves, and many other things of that scenario. But I'm sure you can think of many clever ways of bringing in this concept to life. So, why no nobles? Tactiquest wants to challenge players with strategic decisions, including social ones. Someone born into wealth and status can skip these decisions unless that wealth and status is taken away. Thematically, Tactiquest accepts the players to punch up, not down. You're struggling, ordinary folks in a harsh world, not enforcers for the rich and powerful. Those people are mostly used as villains. Yeah, completely fair. If you're out here mostly to make decisions. I can understand. I've seen it myself. I've experienced it myself. That once the adventurers get into a certain amount of wealth, even if they didn't necessarily start wealthy, or maybe their backstory didn't offer that kind of wealth, it can not necessarily fuck the bell curve, but it definitely things shift in different areas now, depending on what kind of players you have. Some, you know, maybe get their own or like dedicated maybe force, be it a specialized group of sellswords, maybe a larger unit of less specialized soldiers, anything else of the sorts. Maybe they just blink themselves up to a certain degree. That also has happened. Oh yeah, or quite obvious, the simple one, you're buying your way into certain scenarios. Some other aspect that I can also equally see, which I can understand here, because, you know, in some cases people just don't want to manage that, or just don't want to kind of deal with that sort of thing. That I can see in story reason, or within ways in the story where you can manage that, where you could have a character that is of influence, but might be limited in some way of how that influence is. Maybe, you know, yes, they have funds, but, you know, they have a limited access to how they can utilize their funds, or who knows, again, or if they're abusing that sort of power, their, you know, their wealth family might cut them off from those finances, or anything else of the sort. So, you know, yes, there are ways to manage it, but I can equally also understand to kind of nip it in the bud from the very get-go, to kind of set the tone and the theme from the very beginning. So that's completely fair. Sometimes you just don't necessarily want to deal with that, or maybe you feel like it could stomp onto the player's agency or fantasy that they probably wanted to create. So, you know, if you're transparent with the whole concept that from the very beginning, this fantasy is not intended for these types of games, at the very least for the player side, then at the least from the very beginning they're not gonna have that expectation for their character. And also character creation tables. If you don't want to pick, you can just randomly roll. If you're struggling with a character, you can do a D100 to figure out which of the classes you can be, which are in a total of 25. Or you get an access of and also random creatures, which are at a total also not really 5, but 5-ish, because, you know, the 12 option is a rare creature from the bestiary. If that is also allowed, or your thing, or, you know, it could also be a reroll if you're not if rare creatures are not necessarily available. Or you can put it within the 11-12 option to be the elf instead. One of the two. And as an optional rules when it comes to random characters, not recommended for most games, but more old school, for a more old school feel, have players discover instead of fully handcraft their player characters using these tables. So maybe let people reroll if you end up with nobody that can deal much damage. A fine middle ground is to roll twice on each table and pick one of the two results. Yeah, that's also like a good idea, especially if somehow for this randomizer you go with the concept where everyone is gonna randomize. So at the very least, in the scenarios where maybe players hit a duplicate, at the very least you have the flexibility of choosing something else, so you're not necessarily playing, I don't know, all of you are warriors or something like that. Which I'm sure it could still probably be done or viable, but it's not necessarily optimized, or not necessarily optimized, but, you know, it has limitations in what you can do. Also an option of 20 backgrounds, which you can also roll randomly from with a D20. Again, we're probably going to look at one example of each, probably the first one we're given, to kind of get an idea of how, you know, they are structured. And from that point onwards, you know, the rest of them from within the list are for you to look up by yourself, you know, by getting the book within the link above. Now that we've talked about like general how you set up your character at the beginning, what exactly do you improve as your character advances? The player characters gain XP or experience points from difficult battles. During a rest, the player character may spend their XP, which is 20 times their current level plus 40, to grant to gain a level, which a level up grants one perk, more HP, which compare your class HP grade to the next column, which is going to be referred in a chart later. And at 4th and 8th level choices, you either learn a class. I'm guessing it's an error. It's not a learn a class skill. You learn a skill or a +2 carried items. And any improvements listed in your class are also added for whatever specific level you hit. Yeah, here is kind of like a chart. So you require 60, get a perk at 2nd level, at 3rd 80. Yeah, thanks for catching that. Yeah, an advantage, I guess, to read through them. But yeah, it's completely fine. I get it. It's just because there was like another error last time as well, where you've mentioned somewhere the class list. I think in the skill sections you still refer to the class list, even though that has been removed in other places. Oh yeah, 3rd level requires 80 experience and you gain a perk. At 4th, you require 100 experience and you gain a perk, and either 2 skill points or 2 items carries, or +1 of each. Oh, you can also get a +1 of each. It wasn't mentioned here, so maybe that's also to be clarified, that you can also split, or if you swap that decision. Also here in this table, it's fine. You have +2 skill points. Here it's mentioned, okay. So by the very least in the list is fine. Then yeah, 5th 120, 6th 140, 7th 160. All of those just gain a perk, and maybe if your class gets something for those levels, you get that. On 8th with 180, once again, either 2 skill points, 2 items carried, or 1 of each, and the perk. At 9th 200, and at 10th 220, and both of them are a perk. For an optional rule when it comes to leveling pace, for shorter or longer campaigns, the game master can modify the XP required to level up. For a quick game, you can half the amount. For a normal game, you keep it as is. For a longer game, you increase the requirement by 50%. Or for a year's long game, you could double the requirement. So depending on what you want to play, what you're expecting, you can run with that. If you're the type of group that likes to go through like multiple games, or maybe you want to try out like different systems, like where currently are right now, because with our current actual play, which hopefully we're gonna get back to it at some point. Right now we have our vampire game, we have our Pathfinder game. I know Ghost mentioned in passing that she's been thinking of other. She's been also a Vampire the Masquerade brain on some other ideas as well, which I was like I am about. There were some discussions in the past of some other things, still World of Darkness adjacent, but not vampire adjacent. And that would be neat, but again, one of those things where too many games to run, so little time, and it gets crazy. Yeah, sometimes by just increasing the pace, it's also a nice way to kind of like reach a conclusion with a campaign and jump to another one. Then you also have a concept of retraining. At each level up, a player character may completely restructure their character in any way. This can mean swapping out already taken perks for new ones, or entirely rebuilding your player character from scratch. The Game Master may disallow retraining if it's disruptive to play or very difficult to narratively justify, but it is encouraged to be lenient while retraining to ensure the players are unlocked into choices they made before seeing them in play. I would say that retraining, especially the way it's structured here, where it's a full restructure, I would say that it's especially okay, and I would probably encourage it a lot more if it's, for example, the first time you play the game. Like if it's your first run of the system, like be lenient, because people might have a harder grasp to realize like what are good tactical decisions, what are not, and especially as this being like a tactics-based game, you may decide that you put yourself into a path that it's not really what you wanted, or you realize that it doesn't maybe have a lot of interplay with the rest of the group, and you want something different. So that's completely fair to kind of, you keep the experience fun for everybody. Maybe in a group where most of the party is familiar with what they're doing and is familiar with the system, then yeah, you can maybe, for the sake of narrative, you can add elements of restriction or add elements of a narrative play where, oh, you want to retrain. Well, depending on what exactly you want to retrain, you might also need to go through a process that is a part of your adventuring journey, not just simply swapping out the perks. You want to change the class, you might need to find somebody who is who has knowledge of that class to help you train. Maybe somebody from the party, but even there might require something out of that, as an it could even be a simple kind of like narrative exchange to some extent. But yeah, definitely, and that's something that's always something that I've always I've kind of went with always to be, every time I'm running a system for the first time, or at the very least I'm having some first time players, I'm lenient with their choices. So, and I'm lenient with them, swapping around, or being a bit more forgiving. There is a point, of course, where either within that identical campaign or maybe with a new campaign, I kind of I'm more a bit I get myself a bit more strict. But yeah, the first time around, definitely I'm more lenient, because players might simply just not have an idea what exactly they're investing themselves into, and in the long term, it can affect their fun experience, their joy for the game, realizing that they've invested themselves into something that they're not having fun with. And the main focus there is for all of you to have fun. Now, here you have mentions of HP increases by level. Most of them are increases by 1 or 2 for most levels, and depending on your grade is either mostly +1s, or in majority +2s, the higher the grade is, where A is just +2s, F is just +1s, and between B to D, it's a smattering of 1s and 2s, where the lower you go, the lesser 2s they are. I feel like limiting it on level up only was a good way to avoid trapping you in a build that doesn't work out without letting you change your whole build to suit the situation. Yeah, that makes sense, and that's definitely because it's a big decision. It's fine to put some sort of restriction, and definitely I think like that's the best way to do it when it comes to like rethinking it from the ground up, the character, because yeah, maybe having something, I don't know, maybe something akin to how D&D has it when it comes to spellcasters, where certain spellcasters allow you to change spells on the go, per long rest and all of that, but that's within the class themes, and it's still limited to a certain aspect of the entire class. You're not changing your whole ass class or whole concept of class. And yeah, like changing it's spells are kind of like the equipment, but not the entire class. But yeah, limiting it through level up, it's a good way, because the player can experience their character a good chunk of time, and depending at what point in the game they are, that period between levels, it's longer or shorter, but either way they get a feel of what they currently have, and based on that, they can then, you know, just tweak it until they get to the point where, you know, they kind of like get the concept that they want, and from that point onwards, they kind of keep with that and just improve it with the additional perks, and not just having to rethink the existing ones as well. And, you know, it's also a longer time frame for the players to kind of like think it through, because, you know, an aspect of RPGs, and a thing that, once again, I kind of goes into this idea of, you know, learning as you play. As long as you have it granular and you don't have a ton of things to choose and a ton of things to make decisions for early in character creation and early in your levels, you can also kind of slowly get a feel of each time you add something new, and the player has time to kind of look more deeply into all the other future decisions. So, you know, they also have time to like plan ahead, make that plan, experiment it, see that they don't necessarily like it, but until the next level up, they have time to like look at more into what options they have available, and by the time they can swap it again, they can make those changes a lot more informed. Because, you know, if they are doing it on the go, there's also that you know, analysis paralysis kind of aspect of, oh no, there's so many choices that I can you know, that I have, that, you know, that now I have to consider. Like, even at early levels with just 2 perks, if you were to have it, let's say, without the limit of having it on level up, you still have an options between 25 classes that you have to now rethink, that you have to now take in consideration, like which one is more viable in this scenario, whatever that combat scenario is, and also what of those 2 perks are the ones that are most fitting. Or if you also go into the aspect of multiclassing, it's even worse then, because it's also the aspect of, okay, which two class combos are useful to me right now. So yeah, it gets complicated. It gets into a lot of like analysis paralysis. So yeah, giving them the time to kind of like think it through, either to plan ahead their build or to rethink their build by the time they reach the level up, it's a good thing. And it also gives them time, because sometimes there can also be an aspect of, you know, they're still learning the abilities and the perks and skill sets they have obtained, and maybe the first few times around they don't necessarily make the optimal decisions. They just, you know, go with whatever feels right. But, you know, as they play more of that class, they might also come to the realization. So, you know, they also have a bit of time to kind of, at the very least, get an idea of, is this you know, does this feel bad just because I've made bad decisions at the beginning, or does this feel bad because I've created something that I'm not having fun with, and it limits me or puts me in scenarios that I don't like. So, you know, that's also like another thing. But it's kind of good to kind of put some sort of hard limit. Now, because we were talking like about XP and all that, how you calculate XP. After each battle, the Game Master adds up the total danger of all those monsters defeated. Half if the monsters were not fully fought, for example, if they escaped. +5 for each previous battle since the party's last rest. But you do not count fights with 1/5 of the party's danger or less. So, you know, for basically mundane fights do not count for that. For that cumulative experience. And the party earns that much of total XP split between them, rounded down. The player characters lower level than the highest player characters in the party earn an extra 2 experience per battle. For example, the first battle, the total danger of enemies fought is split between player characters. In the second battle, total danger +5, which is then split. The third battle is total danger +10, as an example of how the XP gets a bit more accumulative. And for non-combat XP is generally not handed out for avoiding fights, as that's the way that's often too resource efficient in a way that discourages interesting gameplay. That is fair, at the very least for this system where, you know, it's built to focus on on combat tactics. You can think it, I would say maybe you could think it on a different way. But again, once you get a feel of how much, you know, XP you kind of accumulate across a battle, you can figure out like an amount that you can maybe offer, but you know, in small numbers as a group, that, you know, they can share or something like that. Because definitely 5 is meant to be like a big increase in the total digit, and it's something that is then split. That means that, you know, getting something like 1 or 2 XP you know, is significant for a character. Also, you know, looking at the XP ranges here, because, you know, 6 XP, 6 HP is like XP is like 10% of your first level up. Even you could think of it just, it's, if you still want to like reward the player, because this system encourages more battle than necessarily non-combat you know, scenarios or resolution through not combat play. Maybe look into it in a way that it's lower than what a combat would offer. So, you know, basically, it's not an efficient way of obtaining your XP. If you still want to feel like you want to reward players, or if not through XP, reward them for something else. That's also like another way. Not everything has to be, you know, countable. Not every reward could be countable. The reward could be something else. Maybe it could be within the game, within the game's diegesis. Let's say, for example, whatever scenario you are in, it was at the request of someone else, which maybe they prefer a more pacifist route. So, you know, you've somehow managed to obtain that pacifist option. So hey, the NPC decides to reward you with some additional coin. That's, you know, that's the trade-off for XP. You get some extra currency that you can get some items instead of getting new perks. It's very easy to house rules in those XP rewards, but I feel like it fit better with the systems to reward just fights. Yeah, that's completely fair. Again, you know that it's very obvious, and you know very well that the core pillar for your system is combat. So of course you want to encourage combat. So most of the reward systems are focused for combat. I'm saying that you can either think of alternatives, either to make the option of the reward systems to be inefficient in things outside of combat, so you still have that reward, you still have that, you know, encouragement, or the reward could be something alternative. So it could be coin, it could be items, it could be something else. It could be favors, it could be, I don't know, anything else of this, because, you know, you can also work in favors. That and the attrition in this game that can be grueling enough to avoid fights is sometimes still very tempting. Yeah, that's fair. You know, that the infamous mention that I feel like I think everyone has heard from a game master once in a while. Just so you know, retreat is a valid option, which is basically the warning flag of, by the way, this fight is very hard. Don't think you're just gonna get an easy win. So think carefully, think strategically, and you feel like if you fucked up, just leave. We've been in some scenarios like that. Oh boy, where it's like, no, maybe you should go, maybe you should leave. Maybe it's not good to stay here for the end of it. No. But yeah, the attrition enough to avoid fights. Yeah, I would say, like, still overall, like, reward them with something, not necessarily XP, could be something else. If, you know, the resolution and conclusion of it all, it's still beneficial. Like, you know, you ended the combat because you you ran away. That's not necessarily completing it by probably what was asked of you. So even though, yeah, technically you concluded the combat, that's in no way a form of reward, or in no way probably beneficial to anybody involved in that request, or in that request. Of course, there's also kind of to, you know, weigh exactly the scenario and situation and how exactly that has been concluded. If it has been concluded in a way that it is equally satisfactory to what the combat would have offered, yes, reward them, but probably reward them either in a different way or in lesser amounts than what even a normal amount of a normal fight would offer. Or, you know, just not reward them at all if it's something that is not within the expected outcomes, or within the same benefits. So, and as a final aspect to look into it when it comes to character creation, multiclassing, at character creation, or with retraining, a player character may spend 2 perks to take a secondary class. Each class has a multiclass section at the back describing what benefits you gain from taking it as a secondary class. You don't gain the full benefits of 2 classes, or otherwise your stats, or otherwise have your stats affected. All effects of multiclassing are listed in your secondary class multiclass section. A player character may invest future perks into further benefits of their chosen multiclass. And you can't choose your main class as your secondary class. You can be a warrior and multiclass into a warrior. So that's you know, that's completely fine. An interesting way, because you mentioned here with retraining, is, you know, you have to spend 2 perks. I was kind of like thinking if you know, because I know you know, retraining is kind of like a forced way of doing it, but I wonder if there is like a way to kind of like naturally offer multiclass as well. Because, you know, technically for each level up, you're gaining 1 perk, which is not enough within the costs, you know, within the cost of multiclass to spend. So, you know, it probably would have been interesting if maybe you had some threshold somewhere within your character level up where maybe you had 2 perks available to obtain, but instead of obtaining those perks, you forgo them to get a multiclass within the diegetic progression of the character. It is the humans that can trade in normal human abilities for free multiclasses. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm saying kind of in a natural progression in the sense that you're not losing what you've already taken and obtained, and you choose what you're about to obtain instead to be the multiclass. Because, you know, with the retraining, you're technically making the choice of losing at least a perk that you decided that you've picked before to take the multiclass. And, you know, if you wanted to have it at something that comes later down your progression, not necessarily something that you have available immediately, that's just a thought of, you know, maybe finding a way, or maybe if that's something that you could think of, finding a way where you feel like you'll naturally progress into a multiclass without having to do a trade-off of something. Yeah, it's a bit clunky right now of having to do a current trade-off, because that's kind of the thing. Because yeah, with retraining, if that's your decision, sure. But if someone that just wants to naturally progress with a character and decides that at some point they want to multiclass, but they don't also want to lose the perks they decided to choose, it's kind of weird, because you're basically have to do a trade-off of, okay, I'm multiclassing now, but I'm losing a perk that I'm gonna obtain back in my next level, because maybe you still want that perk with your multiclassing. Yeah, you know, the best example I can offer, or like the best, like the quickest suggestion I can offer, maybe somewhere within your progression, maybe instead of having 1 perk, you get 2, and that could be a natural point in your progression where you can allow, you know, the player characters to have a natural, you know, a natural evolution into multiclassing without having to trade anything. But it can be just a one-time thing, considering that, you know, it's just once you do it. Because yeah, you have the availability at character creation, and maybe if you have the option, if the players decided that the character creation at the character creation point they just wanted to keep with that, but maybe they still want to obtain multiclass at a different moment. I bet it was worth it though. I think balancing multiclassing effects around 1 perk instead of 2 wouldn't give me enough room to include the interesting abilities, and 2 perks is a pretty big jump. Fair enough. You better understand your system because, you know, you are the one design it. This is just an immediate suggestion that came to mind, even without, you know, looking too deep into what the current perks have available. But yeah, and also to be fair, in certain games and in certain tables, multiclassing can also be seen as kind of more of a, you know, optional feature, maybe. So that also makes sense. Where, you know, in those scenarios, the optional features are not necessarily are not usually weaved completely to kind of go with the flow as natural progression, so that's fine. But yeah, that's kind of like the general structure of creating your character. We're gonna look into some quick examples for each choice, and then we're gonna follow up with some other chapters related to, you know, systems that player characters might have to manage. So yeah, I'm gonna take a quick break because an ad is about to come up, and I'll return after the ad break. See you in a bit. Oh, okay, there we go. So, now that we've looked generally at the elements that you have to look into to write up your character, we're gonna look at one example of each, like for creature type, class, probably even for like elements like background and all of that, and then, you know, I'm gonna leave the rest of the options for you to look at after the fact, just so you get an idea how exactly their structures and probably what to expect out of them. So, for creature types, your player character can be one of many different creature types. Each type grants various benefits and options to spend perks on, and they can fit into the world in many different ways. And we're gonna go with the most common of them all, which is the human, common and widespread, good for players who don't want their player characters to be defined by their creature type, as their bonuses, while impactful, don't push towards any one role or archetype. So for adventurers, you gain one extra perk from your class, but and +1. Sorry, I have something in my throat. There we go, should be fine. And +1 to your max strain. And the second one that you obtain automatically is capable. Choose one of the following benefits: either +2 items carried or a +1 skill. Alternatively, give up these abilities to ignore the 2 perk cost of multiclassing. This prevents you from taking the human only perks listed below. So humans can so yeah, that kind of was like the mention of you're not losing anything, and you're just immediately can just instead of having the perks here, you get a multiclass and still have access to the perks. Oh, hey there, Monologue. Thank you so much for the follow. I do appreciate it. Let me give you a quick shout out while I'm at it, so I don't forget, because I recognize that name, and I copied. I'll copy it as I recognize that. Congrats for saving the game. Unfortunately, we're not actually playing a game this time around. Let me give you a quick. I know you were like playing, yeah, Mahjong Soul. I don't know too much about it. I'm not a Mahjong player. Mahjong. I'm not sure if there is a specific pronunciation. But yeah, everyone's local mouse. Yeah, D mouse. But yeah, I hope all is well, or at least better for you this Friday than it is for me, as I'm still recovering from a busted wrist. But yeah, and all of that. Again, as I said before, if you want to chat, you can chat. If you want to lurk, you can lurk. That's completely fine. For today, in case you're not familiar, I'm covering a tabletop RPG system. I'm just going for the rule book of a game system this time around. Tactiquest, which is linked in the pinned chat and all that fun stuff, free, readily available and for free. Currently looking for some character creation elements, all that. It's been better than yesterday. I wanted to stop by before I head out for the night. Yeah, no worries. I do appreciate it. As I said, all forms of viewership and all forms of support are appreciated here. Even lurking, it's completely fine. I appreciate you just, jumping in, saying hi. That's completely fine. I understand that everyone has their own lives and all that shenanigans, and everyone has to do their own thing. And seeing that you say that you're going off for the night, I'm guessing you're within you are also within EU time zones and whatnot, so you're also within late in the hour, so that's fine. I can understand that. But yeah, as available human perks, you have Tenacity, which is a passive effect. Anytime you gain a strain, you gain extra HP equal to 1 plus the strain gained. And you also have Defiance, which can be used once per travel rest. When afflicted with a status effect, immediately make a strike, or any attack that takes a big action. For example, a spell with a cast time of 2 or less against the creature that inflicted that status effect. Nice, interesting abilities. Really neat. And yeah, from the looks of it, yeah, you have depending on the from the looks of it, each creature has a set amount of innate features, and I'm seeing the norm of having 2 perks per creature type, and then from that point onwards, that's kind of it. So from that point, you just choose from within the class or the skills. But yeah, outside of that, you have dwarves, you have elves, you have goblins. There's also a mention of character size, as goblins are 1/2 size, which affects the combat in the following ways. Creatures provide half cover only to the creatures of their size or smaller. Grabs are less effective on creatures larger than the grabber. All creatures have 1 resistance to displacement for each size larger than they are than the creature pushing them. Some cramped areas are difficult terrain for certain creatures that are larger than half size. So that's fair. So there's equal pros and cons if you're small or big. Also orc, and a selection of rare creatures which are given here as an example. Kobolds, nagas, croakers, yeah, frog-like harpies, deathless, cursed undeads, neat, and fungal hosts, infected with the telepathic habmites of fungoids. Those are neat because they can open up some neat character concepts in design wise, I'm saying. Oh yeah, that's just a quick rundown of creature types. Now, for character classes, your class is the most impactful choice in character creation, which determines most of your abilities. To kind of give, I'm gonna read this because the quick description of all of them. Warriors are weapon experts and excel at the fundamentals of physical combat. Bruisers, all offense attackers with high physical might, violence, and wants to be in the middle of the action. Vanguard, defensive fighters, hard to kill and good at protecting allies. A solid wall of metal and meat. Strategists are tacticians that coordinate allies, reposition them, and enhancing their actions, like these kind of concepts. Love them. Ranger, survivalist that excels at long journeys and preparations, use guerrilla tactics in battle. Scoundrel, highly agile, slippery attackers, extra skills, and fights dirty. Swashbuckler, dashing duelist with fancy maneuvers and excellent mobility. Wayfarer, adventurer versed in many skill sets, no outstanding strengths, no glaring weaknesses, jack of all trades, master of none, sort of scenario. Sage, highly educated scholar with invaluable knowledge and wide variety of non-combat benefits and skills. Bard, loyal ally that brings out the most in their friends, supporting with speeches and songs, excels in social situations. So, also an example that there are certain classes designed for social encounters, not just combat in mind. Merchant, shrewd supplier with high carrying capacity, excels at inventory management, item use, and deal making. Useful class to have, considering that equipment, resource management are important, and crafting are important core systems of the game. So having a class that basically offers you benefits in that scenario of obtaining resources and managing them, it's good. Kind of like the fixer, I would say. I'm guessing in like Cyberpunk Red. You have the one that gives you your job, and someone that it's also offering you the resources that you need. But they're also, to some extent, for some reason or another, a bit more hands-on. They're not just gonna be passives. Alchemist, potion brewer, supporting allies with various concoctions, healing potions and bombs and poisons. Tinkerer, crafter and artisan with unique devices. Master of all crafting, gear, potions, scrolls, magical artifacts, you name it. Arcanist is a flexible magic user with a wide array of unusual utility spells. Greatest spell variety of any class. War Mage, volatile spells, slinger, frail and inflexible, but with devastating magical artillery. Runeblade, weapon mage, blending magic and martial combat. Close range attack spells, lots of teleporting. Yeah, if you're squishy, at the very least be slippery. Abjurer, defensive spell weave, cast lots of walls, slow zones, and protective wards on allies. Valkyrie, heroic holy warrior, selflessly heals and protects allies, sacrificing its own well-being for others to great effect. Like another concept that I kind of like. Sun Priest, holy miracle worker with many restorative spells and potent blessings, good against undead. So, cleric a type. Earth Priest, blessed steward of plants and beasts, manipulates terrain and shapes of the battlefield, complex to play. That's understandable. Then you have Witch, sinister occultist, curses foes with debilitating dark magic, knows all the rituals and dark secrets. Necromancer, warlock tampering with life and death, reanimates the dead and rots foes with forbidden sorceries. Soulcaller, bringer of astral spirits and alien monsters, is bound to fight for it. Yay, bringing eldritch horrors to being, always fun. Not at all devastating. Beguiler, magical trickster specializing in illusions, illusions and charms, bending wills, and misdirecting foes. And the last one, Oracle, divines future, present, and past, subtly manipulates the threads of fate, and uncovers lost knowledge. Yeah, a lot of flexibility, a lot of like interplay even between them, because even without multiclassing, you have a decent selection of in-betweens, even as main classes. If you want to be a Spellblade, you have an option of a Spellblade already with a Runeblade. You don't necessarily have to go something like Warrior and Arcanist or War Mage. You still have that available. Even though the Paladin-esque is very classical, but in some aspects you can consider the Paladin as being the mix of the Warrior and Priest type. But again, even though it's more classical scene, it's still technically a mixture of two wider, broader concepts. Here as well, Swashbuckler and Scoundrel in some systems could be seen within the same class, but here they are split together, even though they're not technically the same, although they could have a lot of overlap. And so many others in that example. So yeah, you even have a bit of like branching options without necessarily having the need to multiclass. So the multiclassing itself can also bring a lot more depth this way than just simply creating probably the more wanted concepts out there. So, you don't have to multiclass to make a Spellblade, but maybe you want to make a Spellblade that has some other interesting aspects to them. there's a whole lot of them here because I felt all of these concepts wanted a whole class worth of design space. That's fair. To be fair, I think it's better to kind of get out of the way the combos that you'd probably expect most people would want. So that way, I think like whatever multiclassing would offer is offers even greater depth and greater something even more unique than before. So, you know, as I said, you don't have the Spellblade as a multiclass, but maybe you have something else. Maybe you have a Spellblade who's a strategist. So, you know, someone that wields magics, but because of their, you know, wider knowledge, they also have a good tactical play or some ways to kind of like manipulate the battlefield. Or maybe they're a scoundrel. Maybe they've learned these magics through dirty means. Maybe they've stole secret tomes or something of the sorts and learn on their own. But you know, and that kind of creates its own concepts. Or who knows, if you want to go kind of more akin to the original lore for the Blade Singer in Forgotten Realms, you could be a bard in Runeblade, and you are that kind of elven spell song sort of a class. Very Gandalf-esque, I would say, in that scenario. Also, a big goal with these was to have more non-mages than mages, since I feel like it's most games just gives everyone magic, and that's not as grounded as I like. Yeah, that's also makes it's completely valid. You know, not everyone wants to play a high fantasy. Some people prefer something a bit more grounded, something where magic feels rare, powerful, or maybe in some aspects forbidden. So the use of it should be taken with a lot more care and thought, and not just being thrown willy-nilly. That's completely fair. Or, you know, you just probably want to add just that more extra challenge, where you would expect that magic would probably trivialize certain concepts just purely because, you know, magics are a bit more powerful. But yeah, quite obvious that, you know, even where in some places you would see some concepts being more akin to or maybe would be interpreted as being spellcasters, here are not. You know, the bard and the sage in no way have any means of spellcasting. They are just support classes, so they offer perks and buffs and abilities, but not spells or magics. Similar, maybe, I would say in most cases, some alchemist is still within that kind of crafting area, but if we're going, for example, like the, you know, the D&D artificer, not so much. Tinker, again, more heavier on the crafting than necessarily spell casting. And again, example that, you know, in 5th edition, the artificer is more, it's kind of a half caster. Like, yeah, you have some crafting, but you also have some spells. Yeah, that's completely valid and makes sense. So when you're choosing a class, different classes fill different roles. So you might pick a class based on what role you want to fill, or to fill in the gap on what situations your party may cover. When it comes to party composition, most party want to cover a variety of roles. But this is not a hard rule. Your group may end up being very strong in one specific role. These parties crush challenges that play to their strengths and struggle immensely with those that exploit their weaknesses. For some, this is part of the fun. For others, it only gets in the way. So discuss with your group during character creation. However, avoid parties with no way of to deal much damage. This can turn combat into a slow, drawn-out slog. Bring someone who can end fights fast. But yeah, party composition is a good discussion at the very least. If you're not, if you're the type of group, because for example, I like to add a bit of mystique or keep a lot of aspects of the character a bit more close to heart, and I enjoy the aspect of, you know, discovering elements about my character, or, you know, the party discovering aspects of my character in play. But at the very least, have the core aspects discussed, like, hey, what kind of role do you want to fill? What kind of role? Or maybe even have the class to some degree discussed. so everyone has an understanding. Because depending on the game system, depending on what you're playing, depending on the group, it's important to, at the very least, to be a point that it's covered. Like, hey, what's the composition? What do we want out of our party composition? We care to have a variety. Do we not? In general, we've always pushed, at the very least in our groups, we've always pushed to a bit of variety, at the very least to have some main aspects. Someone that is a support class or with some healing capabilities. Someone that's a bit more frontline or tankier type, or at the very least frontline, and some who can be a bit more, long range or at range and do their own thing. And that's kind of it. Just a bit of variety, just so we avoid certain odd situations here and there. Yeah, I'm very happy how Incision turned out. Things because in other games they usually make them magical. Yeah, that's completely fair. Ranger, I would say, I think some systems don't necessarily make them magical. I know D&D does, because they're half casters. But I can. And to be fair, D&D kind of utilizes the concept of spells, at the very least for some of the half casters, as kind of this to flavor abilities and perks. Because a lot of the spells that the ranger has available are things like multi-shots, or like your arrows do like some sort of or like your range attacks do some sort of like special abilities, or you do like AoE attacks that also are representative of like arrows or something like that. So in many aspects, sometimes the spells are designed to be flavored, or at the very least the spell list is designed to be just a way to kind of flavor an ability that should be limited and not something that you can constantly spam. Also, I gotta get ready for work in about 30 minutes. That's completely fine. Don't worry about it. I'm still gonna be out here for a few hours, I guess. I'm mostly just gonna cover what elements of character creation and probably a few more chapters around concepts that the character or the party might, or not the party, a player character might have to manage. Things like, I think equipment and gear, and inventory might be the other two. Spellcasting, rest, healing, and combat, I might leave them for like a second stream. It really depends on how long I'm going to go with this. More than anything. Because if I'm fast, I might also go with spellcasting, as it's technically particular to classes more than it's particular to combat. Because we might just not play a class that is a spellcaster. Depends on how much progress I'm gonna do. But yeah, also it's fair. Don't worry. Sorry. I appreciate for the time you've been, Jan, and for all the insights and additional confirmation and corrections you offered. So yeah, don't worry about it. As I said before, these videos are gonna be available as VODs on Twitch for as long as Twitch keeps my VODs. For the time being, a lot for not too long, because I don't have a Prime sub anymore. I'm gonna get back into getting a Prime sub just to increase my archive length, and also quite obvious, once the stream is ended on the YouTube side, it's gonna be immediately available on YouTube. You also have it there. You're not losing anything. So if you really want to see, you can just come back at any point through the VOD. Also happy to drop by, and also happy to have you around, so no worries. And good luck with your work and with whatever else you have to do for today. But yeah, as the general concepts, as general ideas, and what exactly roles each class, in what roles the classes do fit. So if you want your character to do heavy damage, the bruiser and the warrior are strong weapon users focused on physical combat first and foremost. The swashbuckler is a duelist that blends deft maneuvers with high single target damage. The rune blade mixes weapon attacks with damaging spells to great effect. And the war mage has brutally powerful spells, win or lose battles by themselves, but they have many weaknesses. Their HP is low, they can run out of spells, and they have little to offer outside of combat. And finally, the Orc is a creature type that is a powerhouse which bumps the damage of any class. So even if you're deciding to play something that is not as big of a damage dealer, with the Orc you can turn it so. If you want to have a bit more of a wider fantasy. But for the big deeps, and these are the general classes that you want to look into. If you want to protect your allies, the Vanguard is a heavily armored, tough to kill protector that can take hits for allies and keeps enemy close. Valkyrie is a self-sacrificing avenger, training themselves to heal and protect allies far beyond any normal class. The Abjurer is a defensive mage, able to conjure walls, slow approaching foes, and armor allies with wards at range. And the Earth Priest and Runeblade may also specialize in defending allies with the right spells and perk choices. So these ones can also be a bit more on the flexibility side. And support and empower allies. A strategist moves allies into advantageous positions and distributes extra actions. The Bard keeps friends at full strength with gentle healing, boosted morale, and empowering allies' skills outside of battle. And the Alchemist brews potent potions that heal allies or grant new abilities. The Tinkerer crafts powerful gear and unique tools for their allies to wield. The Valkyrie gives incredible support for their own expense. At their own expense. Their healing uniquely strains themselves, not the one being healed. And the Sun Priest has the best healing abilities of any class and a variety of useful blessings to empower their allies. If you want to impede and afflict enemies, Arcanist, Abjurer, and Earth Priest alter terrain and create hazards and obstructions, make the battlefield more dangerous for their enemies and more exploitable for their allies. The Alchemist, Arcanist, Witch, and the Naga creature type have many ways to debilitate and weaken foes. Again, pretty cool that, you know, sometimes you can just you can fit into that role even with a creature type. So you have, in certain scenarios, flexibility. If you want to be swift and agile, the Scoundrel can always get somewhere they shouldn't be, attacking from the shadow, right at home in highly vertical battlefields, with lots of high up spots to escape to. The Swashbuckler excels at dashing in and out of melee, always tauntingly juts out of reach of an opponent's blade. The Ranger attacks from afar and excels at keeping distance from foes. Runeblade specializes in teleportations, always to be able to be where they need to be at a moment's notice. And the Goblin creature type adds extra mobility to any class, allowing for skirmishing tactics to be mixed into any character's fighting style. If you want to be tough to kill, Warrior, Vanguards, and Valkyrie are highly durable, able to wear heavy armor effectively and with high hit points. The Dwarf creature type grants any character improved survivability, allowing even fragile classes to take a hit or two, making already tough classes into unyielding bulwarks. And the Necromancer and Soulcaller even have low HP, but they hide behind a defensive wall of minions. If you want to have utility outside of combat, Sages gain more skills than any other class and excel at uncovering knowledge. Scoundrel also gain a high number of skills. Merchants make inventory management a breeze, always able to secure resources the party needs. The Bard is a suave and charming socialite, able to expertly navigate conversations with NPCs. Ranger is an expert at outdoor exploration, taming dangerous wild into a simple and manageable path. Tinkerer is an expert craftsman, whose tool, trinkets, and skills always come in handy. Arcanist, suite of useful utility spells, cover many variety of situations no mundane means can accomplish. The Beguiler bends the minds of all who come near, specialized in mind control. That's very powerful, but excessive use of it will draw unwanted attention as their spells fade eventually. Plus, you can also play a bit into this concept that, you know, depending on the places, if you're going into places where magic is more well known, you might have some laws and regulations that enforce and forbid the use of mental manipulation. So the Beguiler could get in trouble. Oracle holds esoteric knowledge of the past, present, and future, able to unearth secrets no living person holds. And the Kobold and Elf creature types provide mundane and magical utility, respectively. And finally, if you want to have a little bit of everything, the Wayfarer covers a wide variety of roles, but can't specialize too far into any excellent, well-rounded class, especially for small parties. The Arcanist trades raw power for flexibility, with a spell list that covers many situations in combat and out, and more spells known than any other class. And finally, the Human creature type fits any class like a glove, with benefits that are always useful on any character. Yeah, you have, I would say, slightly a bit beyond the Holy Trinity. Like, yeah, the main three here in this first page kind of covered the Holy Trinity, as you would encounter in a tabletop RPG. I would say that there is always that mention that technically you could split, because within the Holy Trinity you would say that, you know, you have the tank, the DPS, and the support. I'm calling them support because the support could then be split into like 3 branches of their own. You could have the support healer type, the support buffer type, and the support debuffer type or crowd controller type. So you can technically, one role could be split into like 3 specific ones. So that already kind of like, because you know, you can have like heavy focus on those aspects and have a quite compelling class in its own. And some games out there kind of work with that system. Of course, even within the other ones, like the DPS class can still be technically split, I would say, within range and close range damage dealer, you know, match by type as well to some extent, but that's not necessarily as granular or as in depth. At most, I would say just the range and close range. Just by range, yes, you could technically split them apart. But yeah, a wide variety of options, and you know, from very hard combat and, you know, a battlefield focus to almost not at all, and just build them in a way that they offer assistance or they benefit the party for their combats in different ways, but they might have more higher uses in outside of it. And you know, also kind of shows that even though it's a combat system, it's still designed with the idea that you might on occasion not just focus on combat, which is nice, which is good to have that flexibility. Because systems that sometimes can be a bit too hard set in just being a single type of system can be a really low barrier of entry for some that kind of prefer or want a bit of variety. Either that or it puts you know, the game master into this weird position of, if they want to have that flexibility, they kind of have to figure it out themselves. Because that's currently something that I'm in a way thinking with Lancer. Because Lancer is really cool. I like Lancer and I like the combat of it, and you know, to be fair, I want to play Lancer mostly because of those elements. But I know people within my group that also appreciate and like and want to have their roleplay moments. And Lancer, as it's written, it's heavily structured in a more combat, I would say, kind of gamey fashion. It feels a bit more, you know, everything is kind of like structured in stages and in game stages sort of way, and doesn't necessarily have a lot of that kind of like flexibility. And a lot of the where you probably would encounter the roleplay, it's more free-flowing, I would say, and none of the features and options and things that you have available for your character and your class are really open to offer anything beneficial for those moments. Especially because most of the abilities that you would have available are tied to your mech and not necessarily to your character. Of course, some adjustments here and there you could offer. Some of the skill sets I would say you could utilize, but again, that would require effort from the game master to kind of make those adjustments and clarify, or at the least add some clarification. How exactly do you want to interpret certain skill sets and skill roles within out of mech and out of combat scenarios? Yeah, minimizing that kind of effort is always good. Now, we're gonna look at one class as an example, and the one that we're gonna given first and foremost, a staple of most tabletop RPGs, the warrior type, the fighter, the one that does the damage. A veteran soldier, a town guard, a folk hero, exiled knight, dark lord, bandit king, jaded mercenary, or anyone else dedicated to mastering the art of martial combat. Though straightforward, their skill in battle is unparalleled. When it comes to playstyle, they are well-rounded combatants with good offense, defense, and coverage. Best users of weapons and armor. Their HP is at a B grade, so it's 16 HP at first level. Have a max strain of 5, equip slots of 6. Speed of 6 squares. They have starting gear of 10 silver, a soldier's kit, and 2 extra weapons. And they start with 4 skill points that they can put in wherever they want. They have a combat opportunist. As a passive, they gain the following benefits. Any situational damage bonus you gain from high ground status effects, spells, or abilities cast on your target but not on you is increased by 1. Your grabs ignore the requirements for a free hand. Is if half size is, count your size as 1 for your grabs and shoves. So nice if you're even a goblin or other creature within that category. Then you have fighting style. You choose one of the following benefits at character creation. You could be an arms master, or weapons in your inventory that don't require more hands or equip slots than your currently equipped weapon can be used as if equipped. Weapon dedication. Your strike can be weapon specials without the usual small action cost. And simple strength. Once per battle, you deal a +3 damage with a strike, and this becomes a +4 at 6 and a +5 at 10. So you have basically a boost in damage the first time around. You also have imposing, where once per battle, when an enemy would engage or disengage you, cost them 2 square of movement before their move resolves. So it takes them a lot more movement just to get out of your range of effect. Martial Eye, you always know danger of any creature you can see. Know the danger of any creature you can see. So good intel gathering. And for level advancements, for level bonuses, at level 2 and 10, you get a plus damage on all strikes. Level 4, you get an additional equip slot. Level 6 is the damage combat opportunist. You also get +1 max strain at level 8. And at level 10, you get Martial Mastery, which is a passive, meaning that you gain a second fighting style. And from this point onwards, you just have the list of perks, which is quite a few of them. It's, I would say, what? Like 16 per page, something like that. There's like 2 pages of them. So yeah, quite a good selection of them. And if you choose to multiclass into a warrior, and you're not a main class warrior already, a player character that wishes to take warrior as their secondary class gives up both their starting perks for the combat training. This is a prerequisite for all the other benefits of the multiclass. So you gain combat training, you get a +1 equip slot, you increase your HP by 1 grade to a maximum of A grade, or gain a +1 square speed in case you are already an A grade class, I'm suspecting, and you gain the Warrior's Martial Eye ability. Now, as multiclass perks, you can choose weapon swap. All weapons in your inventory that aren't heavy or require more hands than you currently equipped can be used as if equipped, so kind of equivalent to the Arms Master. And you have a small selection of warrior perks that are available to you as well, which is what you get 6 of them out of the, I'm guessing, almost 32-ish options that you get, or maybe even 30. Maybe it could be something around like 30 options. So yeah, you get a smaller selection, but you still have the wider selection of perks from your main class. So so you don't necessarily get overwhelmed with too many perk choices, which is fair. And yeah, I think that covers all that is related to classes, which overall covers the basics, simple to understand, simple to grasp, nothing too complex, which is nice to have, nice to kind of look into. But yeah, and I don't think there's anything else for me to look at them. There was a mention of backgrounds, but I've not seen backgrounds. That's... Or is it just purely out of flavor? Hold on. Background... Oh, I'm guessing the background is purely flavor, and in case you don't have an idea in what background to choose, here are some standard options that you might have available for backgrounds. I think that's what's referred to. Yeah, backgrounds are just flavor. Good enough. Just double checking because I knew there was like it was like a very hyper specific kind of like subsection, so I wanted to double check that I've not missed something out, or that maybe it was placed somewhere else. But yeah, outside of this, I mean, we're gonna jump into equipment and gear next. We're not gonna look too heavy into the items themselves. So but if there's like something like rule specifics, like for example how armor works or anything like that, we're just gonna look into that, but then move onwards when it comes to all that. But I'm guessing that most of the aspects when it comes to like how certain elements of armor, weaponries, and all that are probably mostly covered in combat. But if there is like certain explicatives or rulings or descriptions, we're gonna go with that. Then inventory, because it's also class or more than anything party related, because it's a party-wide system, not just a character system, but akin to it. And then if we still have time, which we might, we probably also gonna look into spellcasting. More when I say spellcasting, just how spellcasting works, not into like spells. And that probably might cover it for today. Travel, exploration, crafting, base building, that might be elements that we're gonna do for like a separate one, and probably combat, rest, and healing are gonna be for next time. I think that's gonna be the focus. I'm figuring it right now because I don't want to immediately jump into this chapter right now, because we're gonna probably be on a break soon. So, you know, this is also a quick moment to take a breather, more than anything. But yeah, to kind of like, at the least, the general aspects of character creation, to summarize it, extremely simple, versatile. Like, you can... I like the aspect that some of the roles can be fulfilled by creature types. So if you want versatility in what you can do, or if you don't want necessarily to hyper focus with a class that you may not necessarily be interested in, but you at the same time you also know that a certain gap is within the party composition, you can still fill it with just like with choosing the creature type and still going with whatever class you wanted to go at that point. You still have something, so you still have some flexibility of choice. I'm gonna go get ready for work. Thanks for the stream. No worries, appreciate you being around here, Jan. Excited to see you around for next times as well. And don't worry, I think it's gonna be next week is gonna be on Tuesday, the stream, mostly because Friday Arknight's Enfield is gonna be released, and I want to check it day 2 because it's gonna be released on Thursday, but I don't stream Thursdays, so I'm gonna check it on Friday. So because of that, I'm gonna move the RPG discussion earlier in the week, because I like Saturdays to be just chill indie streams usually. Yeah. So yeah, next Tuesday we're gonna cover more Tactiquest instead of playing Final Fantasy. So yeah, the conclusion for Final Fantasy is gonna be for Realm Reborn is gonna happen 2 weeks from now, because I still also want to get back into Warframe after deciding to no longer play Do a Night Abyss this stream this week, because I need to make some more progress in the story, because I'm currently stuck in some points of progression and grinding, because I've not advanced with the story and I want to do the story on stream. So yeah, I am also want to prioritize Warframe next week. But because of that, no Final Fantasy. And that's how it be. But, you know, the 2 weeks from then, because I'm just expecting Enfield, we're not going to finish it in one stream. If it's like most other gacha games where, you know, it's gonna, the initial starting storyline is gonna be a bit lengthy. We're probably gonna play it a few streams in a row. And that's at least what I'm suspecting, and I think that's kind of the formatting. And, you know, as most gachas, because I've also participated in like a web event, I'm having a few a bit of starting here as well as part of it. So, you know, we're probably gonna jump up with some things. Although initially I was like confused about it, because I saw that they have like this they have a different ranking system, because, you know, every gacha has like some sort of like starring system or maybe letter system. Like, for example, ZZ has A rank and S rank characters, and that's it. B ranks are only available, are only weapons, can also be weapons, but that's it. And lower than B, yeah, no, B, I don't think there's lower than B rank for discs. No, yeah, discs and weapons and engines can also be B rank, have a B rank variant or some sort of like B rank options. And lower the B rank, actually no, I think B rank is the lowest. I don't think there's anything C ranked, not even advancement materials, I think. No, yeah, I think that's it. I think Genshin had it a bit more granular in different rarities, like green, blue, purple, that sort of thing. While here it has it in stars, but the lower end characters, what would be the A ranks in ZZZ, are 5 stars, and the high end characters, the S ranks, are 6 stars. I'm like, okay, whatever, sure, say whatever, how many stars you fucking want. It doesn't. I like this. How this is kind of like a weird holdover of some of the more grindier gachas, where you have lower rankings from like 1 star to however fucking many stars you have above that, or if you have them in letter rankings, the same thing. You have them from like, I don't know, A rank, S rank, double S, triple S, or whatever the fuck else you want to call them. And it's like this weird holdover even for games where they just go into this one where you just have the premium characters and the non-premium characters, because that's basically kind of what's divided into. They still keep this weird numerical aspect of it, or this kind of like weird multi-grading, even though it's just, in most scenarios, it's just binary. It's just one or the other, and that's it. But I looked a bit into it and it looked kind of neat. But anyways, that's a side tangent and something that probably to be discussed once we play Enfield. Right now, I'm going to take a break as an ad is about to come up in a few seconds. And I'll return after the ad break. I'll see you in a bit. Okay. There we are. So, now that we looked at elements of building your character, let's see what you're gonna equip them with in the equipment and gear section. So, for starting gear kits, most classes grant one of the following kits, a few more specific pieces of gear. The soldier kit offers any one weapon, any one armor piece, and a choice of an extra weapon, extra armor piece, or a special arrow. So one of the three, not all of them. Then the Dungeoneer's kit, any one weapon, 2 tools, and a choice of any one armor piece or an additional tool. And the Mage kit costs a choice of a casting focus or any one weapon, choice of 2 mana worth of spell scrolls from your class, an extra focus, or a non-rare potion. You may drop 1 item from your kit for any one weapon, armor piece, tool, non-rare potion, casting focus, special arrow, or 1 mana worth of scrolls. So you have a bit of flexibility if you're deciding to multi-class into something that might require one of those items. So at the least you're not gonna feel useless with that class, with your secondary class. Now, when it comes to tools, you have things like blockpicks, crowbars, shovels, pickaxes, saws, spyglass. By the way, I think I looked at shears as spyglass and I just combined them into spy gear. Well, I mean, to some extent, some of it is there. Battering ram deals in action. Okay, light sources, rope and grappling hook, some details on how they work. Magic trap, all drops, flammable oil, blast powder, the usual. Then, for spell scrolls, a spell scroll is a single-use casting of a given spell in the form of an item. Anyone may cast any spell scroll, even if they couldn't normally cast spells. So, again, this is a general rule that I would honestly overall apply when it comes to spell scrolls in general. I know there's some system out there that don't. D&D. I don't understand why you do not allow spell scrolls to be used by non-spellcasters. It's weird. Like, what's the point of them then? In that moment, so yeah, weird to me. Yeah, spell scrolls, nice extra addition to offer flexibility. Then you have potions. Anyone can drink a potion or administer one to an ally as a big action, applying the potion effect. Potions may also be taken from a fallen ally as part of the action to administer them to that ally, so you don't have to do two actions. And the potion lasts 1 watch unless instant or otherwise noted. Yeah, and non-rare examples are mentioned later in the list. For armor, worn armor grants only damage resistance, but grants not only damage resistance, but grants guard. The first hit you take each battle is reduced by your guard to a minimum of 0. So you get a benefit of minimizing your damage, so that's nice. And here you have a mention of what armors you have and what the amount of equip slots it takes to have that item on you, and what exactly resistances gain and weaknesses depending on the armor type. Because if, for example, you have heavy armor, which is implied to be metal, it is weak to lightning. Then you have wilderness gear. Specific outfits for desert cold environments so can be required to negate drawbacks of resting there. They are worn alongside the armor and take no equip slots, so that's fair. And you also have weapons that mention how many slots it takes, how much damage it does, and what type. And also, in case it's required, it also mentions if it's two-handed or not, or in case of, you know, great sword or short sword here, a great sword as a variant. Yeah, and that's kind of it for that. I'm not gonna look through all the weapons. Yeah, well, there was a mention of special arrows. Ranger strikes never run out of ammunition, but special arrows are tracked individually and gone once used. So, you know, nice that, you know, you don't have to keep track of the mundane type of attacks, but at the very least, for anything special, yeah, that's limited. So, when it comes to hands, you must dedicate each of your hands to by default to either being a free hand wielding weapons or wielding another piece of one-handed equipment. Could be a shield or a casting focus. With held weapons, any equipped weapon may be used if you have at least that many hands dedicated to weapons. For example, you can use an equipped one-handed whip if you have a sword. You can't have a sword and shield in hand, but not equipped a two-handed. But not an equipped two-handed sword. Because, you know, it takes the idea that, you know, you are basically replacing it. So if you have a weapon, if you have one hand, say it goes with the idea, if you have one hand dedicated to a weapon, any one-handed weapons can be swapped around with that hand, and if you have two, with two hands. So yeah, basically, so you don't do like weird shenanigans where you have sword and shield and then it goes great sword. Also, kind of, you know, also you can visualize it in a way that, you know, you can see a warrior, you know, that wields a shield to kind of quickly draw their additional weapon, but you can't see them like quickly drawing a bigger weapon and also putting back their shield. Maybe they could throw it away, if that's something that you really want, but that's kind of it. Then, paired weapons, if both hands are dedicated to weapons, you can designate two one-handed weapons as a pair. With a pair of identical weapons, the wielder makes a full action to make two strikes. With a pair of two different melee weapons or two different range weapons, the lighter weapon takes up no equip slots. This does not apply with armor or casting foci that can also be used as weapons. That's fair. You can also dual wield and gain different benefits depending on how you're dual wielding. And when it comes to equip slots, each player character has a number of equip slots. Weapons, armors, and some other gear takes these slots. This is not the same as the limit of on items carried. Any piece of gear counts as one carried item regardless of equip weight. So player character stamina, each rest is equal to their empty equip slots. So, and may take one strain at the start of battle to regain all spent stamina. Player characters with heavier gear than their equip slots have -1 speed after lowering their speed to at most 6 per slot over the limit, and a +2 weakness to fall damage per slot over the limit. So you can go over your limit. It's just gonna be you're just gonna get some disadvantages and be in riskier positions. Swapping equipment, you may swap what you have equipped as a big action. but this doesn't restore your stamina. That's something to do after your rest, because you've still spent energy up until that point. I mean, common sense. When it comes to cast time foci, various items exist for mages who wish to enhance their spellcasting. Having a focus equipped enhances the wielder's cantrips and counts as a free hand for spellcasting. And different foci have also unique benefits, as it's mentioned here. I'm gonna look through all of them. That's fine. Also pretty cool that, you know, runic weapon can be just any weapon, just technically slightly lower damage, or cannot utilize their special effect, whichever you prefer to lose. That's neat. That's kind of like a trade offer. Kind of, you know, go with that fantasy that, you know, your weapon is your foci. Then, with special arrows, while player characters are always assumed to have normal ammunition on them to fire bows and crossbows. Unique arrows are tracked individually and gone once used. These arrows are fired as part of the strike. Modify the strike with their effect. And their mention is, and they are mentioned way down below. But yeah, overall, because now we're jumping into inventory, which is a different chapter. Yep. But yeah, overall self-explanatory. I like the kind of like equip slot, very kind of Resident Evil-esque in a way. But I like the flexibility of, you know, if you want a bit more than you are able, you can make some trade-offs, which is nice. But, you know, at larger risk, because it is mentioned here that stamina is I'm guessing stamina is also like a big element for certain abilities or effects, or some sort of like attacks or what you'd probably use in combat. So probably going over your equip slots may cause even worse problems. Like, I wonder what exactly is the ruling if you are constantly wearing, you know, heavier gear that is above your speed slot. What exactly it means that to your stamina? Like, is stamina like so integral that you need to use it for something specific? Like, you need to always have some stamina available. So it's not something within your means. Because, you know, stamina is something that is going to be mentioned in the combat chapter. I'm suspecting, which is a bit later. So right now, because we don't have a clear definition of what exactly that would offer, I wonder if it's a wild trade-off, like or it's basically you're making your character unusable because of this, because you're debilitating them from basically doing anything. I'm suspecting it might be closer to the latter. I'm suspecting, but overall, yeah, I like the flexibility. Simplistic. It's still I like that, you know, in some aspects it still has some benefits and some customization. Some elements are not just purely for flavor. So you know, everything is everything that you choose here gives you some sort of benefit and drawbacks, depending on what you consider as a drawback. And, you know, I like that the aspect of not necessarily complicating themselves with too many variants that basically just are the same thing, just slightly altered. You're like, yeah, here are the sword type of weapons. Here's a few variants that might have something unique, but overall that's how all swords work. And from that point on, anything about that sword is flavor when it comes to like what type of great sword you have, what type of short sword you have, or what type of normal sword. I would say probably something akin to a fencing sword. Morning sword, you know, battle axes. So yeah, of that through variety, equally with the armor. You can choose to be well geared, but that also would put you in some bad situations, because, you know, I'm guessing going heavy armor and a helm would give you like a +2 weakness to lightning, which I'm guessing it's It's gonna make it rough if you're ever gonna be shocked. But yeah, now that we covered gear and items, let's go into... I think I skipped over it. Let's go into inventory. So, item weight. Each player character can carry up to 10 items total. These might be weapons, tools, spells, scrolls, or other odds and ends. Small items like keys, quills, marbles, parchment that is not spell scrolls, and so on, don't count to it and save in exorbitant amounts. So, you know, apply common sense. For huge items like furniture, corpses, and so on, they still take up only one item carried, but can't just be thrown into a player character's inventory and being forgotten about it. There's no like pocket dimension in your bag. The player must justify how they are able to move it around. It's carried in both arms, pushed, rolled, and so on, and in a way that's inconvenient for long-term adventuring. So not something that you can just lug around but still be able to act, you know, act as usual. You know, you can't have a body strapped to your back and still, you know, be able to fight and attack within normal means. Like if you are trying to like find a solution within that, you're still probably gonna have some penalties. Silver, which is the most accepted currency in most scenarios. Most player characters start with a few silver in addition to their starting gear. The number of silver numbers for silvers are small. Even a handful is never completely trivial. When the game master is placing treasures, you think of these guidelines. So it's trivial to offer 1 silver. It's modest for 5. It's a hefty for 15. It's quite the treasure if you have 60. It's a fortune to have 300, and it's way too much to have 1,000. So yeah, being too generous with treasure may break the game's balancing factors, so the game master is encouraged to take care with how much is available. Which is fair. The silver doesn't count against a player character's number of items carried, so don't have to worry about that. I'm guessing unless you are doing an insane hefty sum of it. Like probably if you're going way over 1,000, maybe think of it that way, of how exactly it's gonna be counted. Then for supply, you have food and water that which isn't tracked as items. They're simply abstracted into the supply system, as they come up often with so little scarcity that manually tracking them is taxing, so the party can hold up to 6 supplies, regardless of the number of player characters, though some class abilities may increase this amount. The party loses 1 supply each travel rest as they exhaust their ration. They may opt to avoid spending supplies, eating only scraps, to sleep without resting, and all parties start with a total of 3 supplies. Now, regaining supplies. When the party visits a settlement, they may restock an amount depending on the settlement size. So, if it's a small village, you can only do it once. Once probably per visit, at 1 silver per supply. In a town, you can do up to 3 amounts at one time, for 2 silver per supply, so a total of 6. And in a city, you can do it 5 times at once in 1 visit, which is 3 silver per supply, which is a hefty sum of 15. Not a hefty, a modest sum. No, a hefty sum actually of 15. And within a large capital, you can restock at any amount. It's just 4, but it's at a 4 silver per supply. So yeah, you can fully stock up, but you're gonna, you know, it's gonna cost you. After restocking anywhere smaller than a large capital, the player characters can't restock again for a week. So it's once a week. You have to be careful. I mean, to be fair, it's 6 supplies, so basically your resting points should be most likely when you are moving towards the next day. If something grueling happens, it's but yeah, it mentioned that it can restock there, so they can restock in some other places. So if you try to push something a bit more grittier and more heavy on the survival, you might have to push them into this idea of they might have to scour for new places of civilization to restock, knowing that they can't go back where they went from, restock there. Now, traveling merchants, mercenary camps, and other adventuring parties may be encountered on the road and may offer the party the opportunity to trade silver for supply. Usually 4 silver for 1 supply, but a generous or stingy trader might charge more or less. But they usually have 1 supply on hand to sell, in the sense that, you know, you're probably asking to give them out of their own supply, and they will not forgo their entire stock. When defeating a large group of well-off foes, the party can also loot a 1 supply. So even certain combats can offer you additional resources back. Now, as a note, with supply and silver, these resources' purpose is to drive the game by gradually draining and forcing the player characters to adventure to maintain them. Doing nothing is harshly punished. Be proactive in seeking adventure. Yeah. So basically, in this point is letting the players look for the plot hook instead of you having to make a plot hook that the players have to engage with. The players are going to be like, you're going to be out of money, you're going to be out of food, you're going to die, you need a job, look for it. Which is, you know, a bit rough, to say the least. A bit rough. Now, if you're waiting around, players' characters may be tempted to do nothing while they wait for the towns to restock supply. This is generally ineffective. Spending time in town without resting costs 2 silver per day per party, not per person. Waiting in the wilderness causes encounters to occur as normal. 4 watches per day, 2 in 6 chance per watch. So there is a high likelihood, at the very least, an encounter is possible. At least you'll have 1 encounter per day that you're waiting. Now, as an optional rule, you can also have individual supply. Some playstyles benefit from tracking supplies per player character, not per party. For each player character starts with 2 supplies and has a max of 6. Resting cost is 1 supply per resting PC. Abilities that increase max supply are tripled, but apply only to their player character, and player characters may freely trade supplies between them. So you can have somebody who's basically the quartermaster in a way, and they can offer their supplies, some additional supplies to help out PCs. Restocking, each settlement has a set of amount of supplies that can refill each week. In town, you have a 4 supply per week at 1 silver per supply. Oh no, price per 4 supply, it's 1 silver. So for 1 silver, you get 4 supply. In town, you have 8 supply, which is 2 silver in a total of 4. Cities have 16, 3 silver for a total of 12. And large capitals have no limit, but it costs you 4 silver for each 4 supply. So yeah, you can also manage that around if you prefer to kind of like manage it as a per individual instead of group. It's definitely going to get a bit more interesting as you can only get 4 supplies, and depending on how large your group is, that might not cover that, you know, this will cover like maybe an additional day, so you'll still have to go out there and look for other places to restock. So, you know, which, you know, for like certain games where maybe you have tiny settlements decently paced between each other, depending on how your system is, depending on how your world is created, could work out like in your benefit. But after a while, yeah, depending on how you have your world design, this could reach into interesting and odd scenarios where you're probably going to be out of supplies fast. Then, and as a final thing, when it comes to like goods and services, here are some general guidelines worth of costs that you might encounter. Probably within a town, depending on what services or goods you're looking for. Safe rest at an inn is 2 silver per individual. Scrap or monster parts is 3. The rare crafting material is 25. Spell formula is 1 silver per mana. A tool is 5. A weapon or armor is also 5. Pack animal or cart is 20. A mount is between 15 to 30. I'm guessing depending on how luxurious or how the carry capacity of the mount. Healing potions 5. Other potions are 8. Spell scrolls of 4 silver per mana. Spell book is 5 silver per mana. Spellcasting focus 5. To treat an element is 3 silver per stage. Guessing that certain diseases increase. To deliver a letter is 1 silver per march, which I'm thinking is going to be it's going to be mentioned in travel. What exactly does it mean? Wilderness gear is 5. Disguise or noble garb is 10. A minor or routine bribe is 5 silver. A difficult or risky bribe is 15 silver. A deadly serious bribe is 50. So you also have an idea of how to influence the authorities if you ever need to, depending on what sort of trouble you find yourself into. Now, when it comes to availability, most of these items are somewhat scarce, and finding trade with the thing you want is often harder than paying the cost. Each settlement has a few specific traders. For example, a chemist, mage, and smith, determining what's available. So, you know, it's going to be making... the Make a Settlement in the Game Master's Guide is going to offer you some guidelines into that. But all settlements have an inn for safe rest. Tools like shovel, ropes, and torches, like very mundane ones. Scraps for crafting. With as many tools and scrap in stock as the settlement has supply. So it cannot exceed too much. When it comes to selling items, may be only sold for half their value, unless the player characters find a buyer who especially values that item. Artifacts in generally can't be sold, so that's up for you to obtain and wield, which is completely fair. But yeah, that covers overall general aspects of inventory and services. Once again, pretty simple. As mentioned before, elements of survival and resource management are important, and resource management in this situation is both how you manage your equipment and how you manage your travel time and survive, and your time adventuring. And it has a heavy push on you kind of have to maintain that pace, so you're out there constantly looking for adventure. So you have a kind of built-in in-game incentive outside of what the game master might create themselves as their own incentive. So it's also important to have that covered as well. But yeah, I like it, and the biggest part of I like in general, like, quick guidelines on how to manage important aspects of a city, or like populated locations, equipment as well, especially like the more common encountered requests, and how to handle a lot of these elements, and giving you ranges of what is seen as valuable, what is seen as ridiculous, what is seen as mundane, is always good to have as a starting reference, because figuring out on yourself can, as the rulebook mentioned it, can be problematic, because if you are too generous with your players, yeah, that can immediately fuck the bell curve of difficulty, because the players can at that point can afford who knows how much equipment, or who knows what other ridiculous crazy things, like maybe some rare materials that would then allow them to create something really powerful, or something that would shift the elements of balance. So yeah, or shift the battlefield heavily. So yeah, it's important to at the least balance out how you deal with all of this. But as a final chapter to kind of like conclude, because we still have a few more minutes and this is just one page that we're going to cover, and probably we're just going to look at one example to have an idea how it's structured. Spellcasting, as you know, some of the classes that you have available can also cast spells. Even though this is more of a combat related thing, it's probably better to have it here. So, for casting spells, all spells have a cast time of 1 to 4, or measured in times too long to be cast in combat. To cast a spell, a player character must spend 1 or more actions until they meet the casting requirement. A move and small action count 1 towards the cast time. Big actions count as 2. To cast a spell with free casting time, you might spend your big action and small action, or maybe a big action and a move, or your move action and 2 small actions. You have options in how exactly you want to spend your action resources, and only 1 spell, including cantrips. So not even the ridiculous, you know, D&D rule of cantrips are exceeded, may be cast per turn, even if the caster has time to cast more. Now, freehand, spellcasting requires either a freehand or a spellcasting focus. Spells cannot be casted if the caster's hands are full with weapons and shields and etc. So technically you still need from my understanding here, you still need a freehand even if your casting focus may not be on hand, although that might offer you an exception. I forgot exactly. You have to look at that rule. You have to look at that, because there was like the amulet one that said that you don't need hands, so you might still not need one. That's remain to be seen. Then mana. All spellcasters have a resource called mana. Cast spells. With each list, each spell has a specific mana cost. Cantrips are spells that cost nothing, though are learned separately from normal means. For example, if something gives you a spell known, you can't spend it to learn a new cantrip, so cantrips are learned in a different method. On a level up, casters may learn any spell on their spell list, no matter how potent, but casting especially powerful spells strains the caster's body. So spellcasting classes with have a mana limit, which increases as they level. Casting spells with a mana cost above the limit gives the caster strain equal to how much exceeds the limit. So you can make that risky choice of having a really powerful spell but at a cost of strain. Casters regain half their maximum mana on a travel rest, and all their maximum mana on a save rest, so once you're back at a settlement. Casting a spell without mana, for example through a scroll, still qualify for any way the caster may modify their spells, such as a perk that increases its duration or damage. And I'm guessing in case that perk also adds an additional mana cost to it, you still have to apply that additional mana cost because it's still 0 plus something. It still offers a positive cost. Then visibility spells involve glowing lights, hand movements, and chanting that make the cast obvious to onlookers, aside from spells designed to be subtle manipulation, like charms and illusion, so quite obvious that somebody's casting a spell. And some spells might require that last longer, and that lasts as long as the caster concentrates. If the caster takes damage while concentrating, they have 2 options. They spend 1 stamina, 1 mana, or gain 1 strain, and the spell continues. And concentration can't be disrupted again until after the caster's next turn, so even if they take repeated damage, they keep their concentration, or the spell is disrupted and ends. So you have at the very least a choice if you decide to end it, or if you keep it for the next duration, until this combat round ends and your turn comes back around. Then NPCs casters track none of the above resources, and instead can spend their next turn to maintain concentration, for next move action to maintain concentration, unable to be disrupted again until after their next turn. Concentration ends immediately if the caster is felled or has taken rest, so nothing is indefinite. You also have desperate casting once per scene. Caster may cast a spell that would reduce their mana to 2 or below 0, taking 2 permanent damage, which can't be reduced, and per 1 mana it will cost. So depending on how much it costs, you can do that. Cast a spell that would reduce their mana 2 or below 0. My understanding here that is that you forgo over the entirety of its mana cost for damage cost. That's my understanding. So it's not like what goes below 0 takes 2 damage. No, even up until 0, you still take damage. And when it comes to spell list, all casters have a spell list, noting spells that they can learn. Most spells can be learned at character creation, but any listed spell with an asterisk may only be learned on level up. I'm guessing you don't start with insane powerful abilities, powerful spells from character creation. And for non-casters, there are a variety of ways to player characters without spellcasting or the mana it provides to obtain limited casting of certain spells, usually restricted to a number of times per rest. Any cast of a spell that does not expend mana, such as abilities described above, or from spell scrolls, ignore mana limits entirely. So you can cast them without ever having to spend that mana, because I'm guessing you can diegetically consider that the mana has been expended to embed it into the scroll. So the scroll will utilize whatever magical energy it resides in. But that's kind of generally how spell works, and here are the list of all the spells. You have its name, Abjuring Air, action cost of cast time, mana cost, description, duration, and also really nice for what casters is available in case you are referencing a spell but you are not referencing the class. But it's good to have both of them because it's really annoying to look at spells vice versa. So that's really nice. But yeah, overall that kind of covers it, because I don't think I'm gonna go rest and healing, because I think this still actually I think we can go rest and healing, because from the looks of it, it's still another page. And then we can conclude. Because for just one other page looking at the time, yeah, we can totally do it. So why not? Let's extend it a bit longer. To kind of conclude it, because to be fair, like, this is also like a aspect of character, of the general character systems. So why not? Okay. Plus it was vaguely mentioned here and there, the aspect of rest. So, rest and healing. A player character's adventure dealing with battles and environmental dangers. They'll start to run low on resources that come back only when they rest. And there are 2 types of rest. You have travel rest, are a night's sleep and a meal costing 1 supply. Player characters take a night's sleep without gaining the benefit of a travel rest if they want to conserve supplies. But travel rest restores half your maximum hit points, abilities with limited use per travel rest, half of your max mana if you're a spellcaster, 1 stamina for each empty equip slot, remove 1 strain, and lose 1 stage of 1 ailment if you have any. The party may consume 1 supply outside of travel rest for only one of the above benefits per player character. This only takes 1 minute, so you can also have like a sort of short rest type of scenario. You also have safe rests, which are night, day, and night again, so basically kind of like a full 24-hour day, where the player characters avoid dangerous work like combat. A weekend off from adventuring can only be done in settlements or other safe havens, and they have a 2 silver cost per player character instead of supply. And save rest restores all hit points abilities limited with use per safe rest or travel rest. But you know, there are some that require a specific safe rest, so for longer adventuring treks, that's gonna be interesting. All mana, if you're a spellcaster, 1 stamina for each empty equip slot, so you don't get like full stamina ever. Restore all strain, remove all strain, sorry, and lose 1 stage of 1 ailment if any. So if that's because you're resting better, doesn't necessarily mean that you're resting faster, depending on the ailment, I guess, but you know, probably to simplify it. Player characters can spend safe rest on crafting and other non-dangerous projects while still getting the benefits of a safe rest. Settlements or allied forts count as safe havens, single huts, or fortified camps protected by the party from encounters. Protect the party from encounters while resting, but that's still only a travel's rest because you're out there in the wilderness, not covered by the woes of society. Now, when it comes to like rest and attrition, because certain classes rely on safe rest more than others, primarily those that can be very powerful in short bursts, then need a safe rest to regain abilities or cure strain. The game is designed around safe rest being somewhat uncommon. This is why they're limited to safe places. Player characters shouldn't get to take safe rests mid-adventure. So yeah, they should be like in between bigger chunks of play, or like bigger chunks of play. And that meaning that probably there's not a ton of mostly abilities that are probably big are limited per safe rest and not necessarily per travel rest. And when it comes to first aid and strain, any player characters can spend 1 minute to apply a first aid to themselves or another player character. This restores 6 HP and adds 1 strain. Player characters with the medicine skill may apply first aid as a big action. If the skill is taken twice, it cures also a status effect. So that's nice. And almost all healing abilities increase the player character's strain. If a player character's strain is full, they can no longer benefit from any strain increasing abilities like first aid or other healing, and die if forced over their maximum strain. So yeah, I'm guessing if they ever encounter some sort of ability or environmental effect or attack from an enemy that would cause this sort of effect, then that could be an insta-death moment. So you have to be careful whenever you manage those. And whenever you're hitting rock bottom, a party completely out of resources with no money to take safe rest or restock supplies may take an adventure loss to recuperate, doing mundane jobs in town to afford adventuring supplies. When finished, player characters get the benefits of a safe rest, are cured of all ailments, and have full supply and extra 20 silver between. However, villains complete their plans and cause new problems in the weeks it takes for the player characters to get back on their feet. Existing problems worsen and life becomes generally harder for everyone. If this is unacceptable, player characters might instead afford supplies by going into debt and being hunted by debt collectors or doing dirty work for shady factions they normally wouldn't put up with. So you can turn things a bit spicy if their party is not able to manage resources. You can add certain twists to it, but of course offer this as a choice to the players. They still have the agency for it, not necessarily hard to set it for the player characters, but at the same time be transparent that, hey, okay, you're able to get into debt, but you know, you'll have to pay off that debt, so keep in mind. But yeah, that also covers rest and healing. Seeing that it was such a quick chapter, I decided why not, let's cover it now. So next time we're gonna look into combat. If certain aspects of combat are gonna be fast, we're probably gonna also look into travel and exploration, and maybe other aspects of crafting and base building are gonna be left for the last point. But yeah, overall, really good, easy to understand, easy to grasp. The character creation offers a lot of flexibility and a lot of like equally strategic play and play style variety, and at the same time flexibility. Like even if you want to, even in the situations where you want to play a specific sort of class fantasy or I don't know, sort of fantasy that you know, one of the classes that you wanted is there available. You still have the possibility and flexibility to still fulfill certain roles by just picking your creature type, which is really nice. You know, having some class fantasies being as major classes also offers a bit more flexibility, where multiclassing becomes a more unique option, or more even more unique selection, as you know, as I said before, things like Runeblade, maybe even in some game system, older game system, maybe Paladin would have also seen as some sort of multi-class, some other things of that nature. It's nice to have. Plus, you know, quite obvious that resource management is heavily ingrained into all aspects of the game, from supplies to equipment and all that, and how you manage it, and how that also affects your rest, and how exactly you are able to gain rest and your ability resources back. So that's also important. But yeah, that kind of covers it for today. I don't think I'm gonna keep it any longer. That's gonna be it for me. But as per usual, let's see, who do we have that we can raid before we go anywhere else, because I feel like that would be particular. Anybody doing anything RPG related? That would be fun. Let's see. RPG. Oh, I think I see somebody, and it's technically newish around the block, so why not, let's say hi to them. Paste here. This way. Channel. And start raid. Yeah, we are jumping at Sin, lovely Sin, for the raid. We're going at their place. They're currently playing some Hightail, which is survival-esque block craft. I don't know, Exo, not voxel style. I think it's more closer to voxel style of you know, game. Probably all of you have heard of Hightail and how it recently just resurged, and it's now like the big thing. So yeah, that's where we're gonna go now and say hi to. So yeah, I'm not gonna keep you all any longer, because I also need to do like something really quick now off stream. So yeah, tomorrow I'm gonna see you all with Void Train a bit earlier than usual by an hour. So usually as the first half of the week, and probably a bit shorter because of, you know, still recovering and all that. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. You've been amazing. Don't forget that. I'll see you on the flip side. Bye.